Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Health Coverage Insurance and Financial Services Committee. This afternoon, we first have a presentation, and then starting at 1:30 or whenever the presentation's over, we have 3 public hearings. Before we get started, we will do introductions. Representative Mastracchio.
Good afternoon. I'm Anne Marie Mastracchio. I represent House District 142, which is part of the city of Sanford and the village of Springvale.
Hi, good afternoon. Representative Paul Flynn, House District 63, which is Winslow, Albion, Freedom, and Unity Plantation.
Good afternoon, Rolf Olson, District 86, which is Raymond, Casco, Fire Island, and a bit of Poland.
Good afternoon, I'm Bob Foley. I represent House District 145, which is most of the town of Wells.
Representative Chimino.
Good afternoon. I'm Representative Mary Grace Chimino. I represent House District 83, which is Bridgeton, Harrison, and Denmark.
Good afternoon. I am Representative Poppy Arford, and I represent District 101, the western part of Brunswick.
Good afternoon, Michelle Boyer. I represent House District 123, which is most of Cape Elizabeth.
And good afternoon, I'm Sally Clucci. I represent House District 52, which includes the communities of Bowdoin, Bowdenham, and Richmond.
Good afternoon. My name is Christy Mathis and I represent District 151 in Kittery. I serve as the co-chair, and you'll have to excuse me. I just have to introduce another bill, but I will be right back.
Right, and I am State Senator Donna Bailey. I represent District 31, which is Buxton, Old Orchard Beach, and Saco, and I serve as the Senate co-chair. And with that, we will start the presentation by the Board of Licensure in Medicine and Board of Osteopathic Licensure on the feasibility of combining the boards. So whoever's going to present, if you could come forward, please. Welcome. Welcome. If you could, somebody could turn the mic on and then briefly introduce yourselves and let us know what's in this wonderful binder.
Good afternoon, Senator Bailey and members of the committee. My name is Tim Terranova. I'm the Executive Director for the Board of Licensure in Medicine.
Good afternoon. I'm Rachel MacArthur. I am the Executive Secretary of the Board of Osteopathic Licensure. Okay.
And so, as a brief background, the boards have been they were established in 1895 and 1919 respectively, so we've been doing this for a while. Our sole purpose is to protect the public. And each board currently has 11 members, 6 physician members, 3 public members, and 2 physician associate members. So I will get right into it. I know you have a lot to do today. The recommendation that is in the first 9 pages of your packet is the 2 boards recommend that they merge and that they merge with equal numbers of allopathic and osteopathic physicians. And I want to just take a little bit of time very quickly to go through how we got there and then look at the draft statute that was created for your consideration. And so as you'll recall, this was LD 805. You saw this in the first session. And you asked that the boards continue to work that they had already started. So we met 12 times during 2025. There were monthly meetings. They were open to the public. Associations were invited to present in the March meeting. There was open to public comment at the end of every meeting starting in April. One meeting was set aside just for public comment. A public website or web page with agendas and materials was established in April. Before that, we had been noticing them on our homepages, but it was thought that there needed to be one place where everybody could go to look for the information. So we created that. The associations were notified of the meetings. As far as letting licensees know, in Bolin, we have a newsletter that goes out 3 times a year. In all 3 newsletters, there were updates about the work group's progress and what was going on, so that and asking people to comment if they had questions or concerns. And then the work group worked the last half of the year really on the creation of a draft statute. If we were merging, we knew that you would have questions about what should that look like? And so we wanted to be as helpful as we could in that process. Before I move on to that, are there any questions about the process?
I don't see any.
Okay. So you have the draft statute, that's, I believe it's pages 11 through about 40. Yeah.
That kind of says it all.
It does,
Okay.
doesn't it? So I just want to hit some of the big points of that. So first, the name. The two boards agreed that the name should be the Board of Medicine because everybody practices medicine. The board composition, there was a lot of discussion about this. It started much lower. As I said, we each have 11 right now. But after a lot of consideration, it was decided that it would be best to keep the same number of members, even on a merged board. And I'll explain why in a moment as part of that draft legislation. So we recommend 22 members. Part of what we're recommending are the creation of investigative committees. So right now, each board, the full board has to review every complaint. It can't go to a committee, and a committee can't adjudicate that. And so what we're recommending is the creation of 2 investigative committees of 11 each, equal numbers of MDs, DOs, 2 PAs, and 3 public members, just like there are now. But with the ability to adjudicate complaints. And one of the other things that would happen is that, so let's call them Complaint Committee A, Complaint Committee B. If Complaint Committee A thinks that there's a violation and sends it to hearing, Complaint Committee B would hold that hearing so that none of the board members involved in the investigation were involved in the hearing. And that's been a big concern with attorneys since I started back in 2000. The current law allows board members who sit in on the investigation part to also hold the hearing. And there are concerns that they have information that they shouldn't have and that they're not able to separate that. But that's what the law allows. So this gives that level of separation. And that's why we want those 22 members so that we can do that work efficiently. What this draft statute also does is it keeps profession-specific training and exams. We're not changing the qualification standards for anybody. And one of the nice things that it would do is to allow DOs more license types. Right now, the Board of Licensure in Medicine has the ability to create license types. So we've created a emeritus license that doesn't cost anything. So when you retire, you can still have your license. You can't practice, but you can still have a license, which is our second most popular license. We have administrative licenses for those doctors who don't see patients because it's important to continue to see patients in order to keep up your clinical competence. The Osteo Board does not have the ability to do that at this time. They only have an active license. So that's a big part of the draft statute. And so those are really the highlights of the statute. There's a lot in there, but those are the big changes. Are there any questions about that?
Representative Boyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. I just wanted to go back to the complaint process. I know when I was reading through the materials, there was a lot of talk about keeping maybe complaints against DOs only like overseen by DOs and same for MDs. But what you just described was that there'll be 2 separate, but there'll be a combo of both DOs and MDs. And that seemed agreeable to most.
Correct. It's certainly agreeable for the boards.
Okay.
And I think I have that down later in my thing. The associations, certainly the osteopathic associations were very verbal in their concerns about any kind of merger. And their concern was that MDs shouldn't be looking at osteopathic manipulation, something they're not trained in. Currently, I can speak for the Board of Licensure in Medicine. There are multiple specialties that we don't have on our board. There are 6 physicians. We can't cover all the specialties. And when there's a specialty that the board's not comfortable looking at, they hire an outside expert review. And that would be the same thing that we would do when merged.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Representative Mastracchio.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And, you know, the biggest news for me out of all this is that you're actually recommending the merger. I'm really excited because in my very first term, we had bills that were, or we'll just put you two together. And we had all these discussions. And I am just happy to see that over a year's time that you can find out that you maybe can trust each other and work together. And I'm really excited to hear the public hearing on this bill. So I'm really excited. Thank you for the work that you did, because I know it wasn't easy. Thanks.
No, go ahead.
And so I want to talk about the budget briefly, because I know that that was a question during the public hearing of 8:05. And so what we've really done, is keep the budget, just combine the two budgets. So, and if you look at page 41, you'll see that there are some one-time costs. And then there's some additional ongoing costs. But on page 43, you'll see the income that we're taking in, and that we should be able to cover those costs under the income that we're taking in. And certainly the one-time costs, there's always going to be costs when you merge something. You know, we have to redo the website. We have to redo all kinds of things. We have to update the database so that it communicates well. Even though we use the same database, there's still some costs to that. The one-time costs can easily come out of our reserves. There's no need for an increase as long as we're allocated that out of the reserves. We have plenty of reserves to do that. And I know that there was specifically a question about, would this save money over time? And A, yes, we think that it will save money over time. But B, if you take a look at page 201, what it will do is it will save money for licensees. So 201 was a look at what the fees would have to be raised if certain numbers of employees were employed. So scenario A was with the Board of Osteopathic Licensure only and hiring four people. And the renewal fee would have to increase by $438, which would put that at a little over $900 per renewal. Scenario C is if you had both Bolum and Bowl, the increase, and we're not saying that we need to hire those people now, but if we were, the increase would be $74 per renewal. Significantly different than if we stayed separate. Any questions about the budget?
Not seeing any.
Okay. I do want to just touch upon, there were several misconceptions and concerns that we heard repeatedly while we were going through this process. We think we've answered most, but I do want to make you aware that there were those concerns. The first, there was a concern for several months that merging the MDs would make the DOs call themselves MDs and take away the DO. It's not the case. There's no change. There was also a concern that DOs would be required to take MD exams. Again, that's not the case. There are DO specific exams. We're not changing any of the standards. DOs go through osteopathic school. They take the osteopathic exam. That doesn't change. MDs go to MD school. MDs take the MD exam. That doesn't change either. So those were two big concerns. Another concern I think we've already touched on were MDs adjudicating issues of osteopathic manipulative treatment. I think I've explained that, so hopefully I don't need to do that again, but I'm happy to answer questions about that. I do want to say that the DO state and national associations were present at, I'm pretty sure, every meeting and provided comments at almost every meeting. And they had the same sort of concerns. They voiced multiple concerns over the time. I think the work group listened to those concerns, but the work group is charged with regulating the profession and protecting the health and safety of the public, and those associations are charged with promoting the profession. And I think while we're good partners, 99% of the time, we have the same goals. We don't always. And I know that the DO associations were very concerned about any loss of autonomy. And I'm sure you'll hear that if you choose to move the bill forward. And then the final few things that I wanted to just point out were some outstanding issues, and they start at page 7 of the report. The first issue were term limits. There's currently no term limits for board members. They can serve as many terms as they want. There was discussion about whether there should or should not be term limits. Terms are 5 years apiece. And it was determined that that was a question best left for the legislature.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
So that was one thing. Another issue for consideration is removal of personal safety from the current FOA section of the law. So the boards have a specific, I believe it applies to nursing as well, provision where when a FOA request is made about a licensee, the boards have to send that information or make available that information to the licensee before they send it to the FOA requester. And we think that's great. We have no problem doing that. We don't want any information out there that shouldn't be out there. But the law goes further and says that they have the ability to petition the board on personal safety. And what we've seen for personal safety is I don't want people to know that I failed anatomy 30 years ago, my first year of medical school. There are certainly some other issues and that we've taken into account, but we see that as it's taking a lot of time and resources. We're currently in litigation about what is personal safety. And so we don't think the review should go away. We think we should send it to the licensees and ask them to make them aware that it's going out. And if we've missed something like a date of birth, to let us know. But the personal safety is a step further. And we would like to see that removed.
Representative Muskraka has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So how often has that been an issue? Like how many times, do you have any data on how often you've had to go through that process?
We've only been in litigation once. That litigation is still ongoing, but we've had in the past 2 years, I believe, 3 requests to the board. So the first step is a request to the board. The board rules on that. In each case, the board has ruled, no, this is not a question of personal safety. It's still being, and nobody has taken it further. Now we have somebody who's taking it further into the court system.
And they want something removed?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
The next outstanding item is raising the statutory cap on licensing fees. I want to make sure that it's clear, we're not planning on raising the rates beyond what they're set at, although we are going to make them uniform. Right now, MDs and DOs pay different fees. If we're merged, they should pay the same fee. But right now, we're at the caps. And as it just makes sense if we're looking at the bill to set aside some room for growth if we need to. But there is no expectation on raising the rates at any time in the near future. But it is something to be, fiscally responsible is to ask for that now.
Representative Muskraka.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what is it right now?
So right now, the initial application fee for MDs it's a total of $700. It's $600 plus $100 for exam, and the renewal is $500. For
DOs is $350 to start for the first initial license, and then renewals are $525.
May I follow up? So are there any other like specialty licenses that they have to pay for as well? They're not included in that cap? I didn't, like in the dental.
No, we do have special licenses. Like I said, the emeritus, which doesn't cost anything. The administrative costs the same amount. We have a temporary, which costs $400. But we don't. But it's the one licensing fee if you want the full license. There's not subspecialties that you have to.
We
So
have
is your
locum tenens and camp licenses as well.
Okay, is there a suggestion that go then to 800? Is that what you're
That is
suggesting?
what we're suggesting, that the cap be is an additional
And that you think gives
$100.
you enough play? Because sometimes you need, I mean, do you want to have to come back to the legislature in 2 years and say, oh, by the way, it wasn't enough and.
We don't want to come back to the
Right.
legislature in 2
Well,
years.
I'm so I'm
which-
saying, I
which is
don't think
why
you do.
We're asking for that now.
Now, okay. And you think that will serve you well for like the next,
We
5
would
to
like
10
think
years?
So, yes.
yeah, okay.
Representative Foley.
Yeah, I think you answered my question. I was just curious, if to raise the fees, is that something the board can do or something the legislature has to do?
The statutory cap is something the legislature does, and then we do it by rule within the cap.
Thank you.
The next item is recognition of international training. So for decades, Bolin has recognized and accepted medical education and postgraduate training received in Canada, the United Kingdom, and Ireland for its allopathic physicians, MDs. This is a time-consuming process, obtaining the specific education and postgraduate education training documentation can be difficult. And as I said, time-consuming. For example, in England, you can have 2 people working in the same residency program at the same hospital at the same time, and one is qualified and one is not. I don't know how that works, but, and then you can't just say, well, they went to that residency program. You have to find out whether that spot was actually qualified. And the question is it time? We've been doing this again for decades. We've been accepting these people. Is it time to just say, we accept it? If you're good enough to work there, we'll accept your licensure as proof that you meet the qualifications. And that's really a legislative policy question because it's a big shift in policy. But it's a question that we want to ask.
So it's not something you can do by rule?
No, because the law sets out what qualifies you for licensure, and there's very specific things. It's not just licensure in England or the UK or Canada. It's, did you do their postgraduate training? Did you do their exams? And we're saying perhaps make it a little simpler and say, if they're registered and licensed in that country, then consider they've met the qualifications rather than looking at each specific piece.
Representative Mastracchio.
Do osteopathic physicians exist in any of those countries? I mean, are they trained only in this country?
To be honest with you, I'm not sure if they're in the other countries, but I have not, I don't have any.
You've
from-
never had anybody come with an osteopathic license and asked to
just
be
to-
licensed from
Yeah,
like
just
England
today,
or Ireland?
I just today received a piece of mail that was for somebody who moved to Canada, but I've never.
All right, thank you.
And it's my understanding, I could be wrong, that it is a US-based profession, although I believe they are trying to expand internationally, but not yet.
Further questions on that? Representative Matheson.
I have a vague memory that Canada was no longer going to be recognized, so
That-
can you just fill me in on that?
Yes, Canadian medical schools were accredited by the US accreditor, LCME. And as of July 1st, they are now accredited by the Canadian Association, which is CACMS. That is also, I will say that approval of CACMS is in the draft statute in case, just as a backup. CACMS has been accrediting those schools the same time as the US has been accrediting them. They're still fully qualified schools. There's just some slight differences in philosophy about how you teach. And so we're asking for that in the bill as well, is to say that CACMS accredited schools are good enough. So we've addressed that as well.
Representative Chimino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe they do have osteopaths in Great Britain, but I don't think it's quite the same thing because I don't think that they can prescribe medications or perform surgery. So I'm wondering how that would translate with someone coming over here who's practicing osteopathic medicine there.
and I am not the expert on this. I'm with the Board of Medicine, but I can try. There are two different kinds of osteopaths, is my understanding. There's the US osteopath, which is a physician, and then there's osteopaths in the rest of the world, which I believe, and I could be wrong, are more like naturopaths. So the US profession is very different than what people call osteopaths in the rest of the world.
Okay. Further questions on that? Seeing it?
The next item is the interstate consultative telehealth registration. So I want to say 10 or 15 years ago, the legislature created the interstate consultative telehealth registration, which lets the Board of Licensure and Medicine issue registrations for interstate consultative telehealth. This is very confusing. It's not telehealth. This allows a physician out of state to talk with the physician in state. You actually don't need a license to do that. But we get a lot of people who apply for it and think that they can do telehealth and provide care directly to patients. We spend a lot of time educating these people that they can't. And unfortunately, we have had to discipline a couple of them for using that, despite being told multiple times that they can't. We think it's confusing. There's only 52 people that have it. So we're asking that it just be dissolved, done away with, and we would work with those 52 people to move them to a full license.
Questions on that?
The work group looked at an effective date as to when the board should merge, and certainly that's up to the legislature. But they are recommending 1/1/27. There's a lot of work to be done when you merge, and we think that that's a possibility that we could be ready at that time.
Representative Strachan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, because I had looked at this and I was trying to figure out if we waited till the end of session and it wasn't an emergency and then you had to wait another 90 days, are you going to start, if it receives a positive, it goes through the system, ends up, and it's not an emergency, will you be able to start your work so that you're ready for January 1st? Because I agree, it's important to give you the time to do that so that you can hit the ground
If we know that
running.
it's going forward, the work will start immediately.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Go ahead.
And just two more. One is, it's not included in this draft, but the Board of Licensure and Medicine and the Board of Osteopathic Licensure are mentioned in many different places in the statute. And all of those would need to be updated. And then finally, this is going to be a concern for a small number of people, and I don't want to belittle that. That's why I separated it out, and it's regarding physician associates. So right now, physician associates can be licensed by either board. They choose which board to be licensed by. I think Bolin has about 1,400 and
52.
So there's a big difference here. And unfortunately, we use the same license numbers. So when we merge, we can't have two people with the same license number. We think we can keep that to the current active, the people who no longer have a license, we can put in a fix for that so that the numbers look a little different. But people who are active, and there's about 60, 50, 60, will have to change their license number. And that's a big issue.
It is.
I don't want to belittle that.
Speaking as an attorney with my bar number, I mean, that
Right.
means a lot to me. So that,
Right.
Just psychologically,
Yes.
that might be difficult.
Yep, and they'll have to, re-register with all the insurances and, all the credentialing. It's not a small issue, but we've tried to keep it. We think we can keep it to a very small number, but I want to point that out that would be an issue for those professionals.
And I assume it's going to be the osteopathic ones just because of the smaller
I
number.
would hope so.
Representative Chimino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So will the fee be waived or will they have to be, when they get the different number, will they have to reapply or repay?
No, there'd be
fees?
no additional charge for that.
Okay.
Representative Straka.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I get it that credentialing process and going through all of that is, there's nothing, have you discussed if there's anything that we can do legislatively to make that easier so that, I mean, I can't imagine that the insurance companies won't understand what's happening. And I just don't want to leave people in a place where they're not able to bill for what they want to do or do their work. So if you think of something.
And we don't either. I mean, and you know, again, this is, a January 1st is what we're asking for. If we know that this is going forward, we're going to start communicating with them that day to try to make sure that it's prepared, move them over so that it's as simple as possible. I think the insurance companies will understand, but I also think the insurance companies are going to want all of their forms and paperwork filled out.
It's kind of what they do. Any other questions? Okay, anything else?
Those were the highlights.
Okay. So my understanding is, we'll do the same process that we normally do with presentations, give people a chance to go through this, get it, whatever questions you have answered, set this up for a work session at a later time and talk about how to report out a bill, because we don't really have a vehicle, but there are different ways we could still do that if that's the inclination of the policy. Bless you. Okay. Right. Thank you for all your work.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Very incredible. Yeah, it's great. So that means we will open public hearings and we will start with LD 2102, an act to clarify and strengthen the government shutdown loan guarantee program. Representative Straka. Oops, I'm moving too fast. I gotta get the podium.
Oh, second, yeah.
Sorry.
Not the right way.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Nice to see you all. I was just over presenting my only other bill that we're both assigned to the exact same time. Two bills right at the same time. So happy to be back here. This is my home. Good afternoon, Senator Bailey and honorable members of the Committee on Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services. I'm Representative Christy Matheson, and I have the great honor to represent House District 151, the lovely seaside community of Kittery. I'm here to present LD 2102, an act to clarify and strengthen the government shutdown loan guarantee program. This bill builds on the program created through LD 874, which established a state and federal shutdown loan guarantee program administered by FAME. The program encourages Maine lending institutions to voluntarily offer free interest loans to eligible state and federal employees during shutdowns lasting more than 7 days. Federal and state employees, as we know, are our backbone to essential public services, from public safety, transportation, education, and in my district, maintaining our Navy shipyards, submarines, and protecting our aviation infrastructure and borders. When these workers are furloughed or required to work without pay, they face immediate financial strain. They're not responsible for this shutdown, but they bear the consequences. In Kittery, nearly 7,700 federal workers at the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard are deeply affected when they're required to work without pay as essential employees. During the recent 43-day shutdown, I heard daily. I'm going to emphasize that. I heard daily for 43 days from employees who could not, one, afford to get gas to get to work, what they were required to do, could not pay for their childcare, couldn't pay a mortgage payment. Some were unable to travel beyond their mandated 50-mile workstation radius required when they are stationed out of town. So that meant they couldn't return to Maine to even apply for assistance during that 43-day shutdown. Most were ineligible for unemployment because they still are required to work full-time, are not available for additional work, and are not seeking other employment, all criteria for unemployment eligibility. It's a perfect storm for these workers. Others were frustrated that their on-base credit union didn't offer these emergency loans without a 3% interest rate. Several workers also reported confusion because financial institutions applied for the programs applied requirements inconsistently, resulting in some mixed messages about eligibility and what was needed for the application. LD 2102 works to clarify some of these issues to ensure the program functions as it was intended. It clarifies the eligibility that employees are not required to apply for unemployment benefits before they apply for the loan. They're not required to undergo a credit check. They're not required to be a member of the lending institution, and they're not required to appear in person if they can verify Maine residency while stationed out of state. This clarification was especially important for these deployed service members that spoke to me who were prohibited from traveling back to Maine, which was more than 50 miles from their duty station during the furlough. 2102 helps strengthen the bill by adding to the original funding pool. It removes the termination clause. I heard from some financial institutions that they were concerned because they thought that the bill's intent was to pay back 10% of a defaulted loan. That was not the intent of the bill. The intent of the bill was to pay back 100% of a defaulted loan for a low-risk loan. It adds an emergency preamble because we are all concerned about these employees with an impending potential shutdown coming towards us in the next couple of weeks, unfortunately. Although the program launched only weeks before the most recent 43-day shutdown, it still provided some very meaningful support. And I thank the financial institutions and the lenders that did become a part of this program. Seaport Credit Union, Kennebunk Savings Bank, and Franklin Savings Bank all issued 151 loans totaling over $758,000. This included 84 loans that went to the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard employees. This clearly met an important need. But with nearly 7,700 workers at the shipyard, the potential to reach more people is significant. Not all employees need assistance during a shutdown, but these highly skilled professionals who maintain the U.S. Navy's submarine fleet deserve our unwavering support. During a shutdown, they're required to keep working while their pay is withheld until Congress resolves the impasse. Their bills don't stop. Their families' needs don't pause. The stress is immense. LD 2102 strengthens the program that has already proven its value and ensures that the workers who keep our state and nation functioning are not left without support during circumstances entirely out of their control. I thank you very much for your consideration and would be happy to try to answer questions.
Thank you, Representative. Questions from committee members? Representative Foley.
Thank you, Madam. Of the 151 loans, do you know if any of those loans defaulted?
So there's a grace period. There's a 90-day grace period for payback, which I think ends the middle of February. But I do know that there are some people from the shipyard that are coming up, hopefully, to testify about returning the payment before that 90-day period. FAME did not indicate whether or not the institutions had seen payments back yet because of that 90-day period.
Representative Olson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You're saying that only 5 lending institutions have gotten into only three, sorry.
3.
What were the reasons that other institutions were giving for not getting into the program? Was it because of the misinterpretation of 10%, 100%, or it's just they didn't want anything to do with the program?
I don't want to totally speak for the financial institutions, but I heard a couple of different, things for feedback from the institutions when I spoke to them. And one was that they were concerned about that 10% payback and the fund value, and there was confusion about a defaulted loan being paid back at a 10% rate. The second one is that I did hear that this had a positive outlook, a positive expansion, that other institutions were offering the same option. So I do think that there were some financial institutions that did it under their own guise that required members or employees to be a member of the credit union or to do a credit check or not. I think that was, those are 2 concerns. The other thing that I heard was that they didn't have the personnel to take care of the need that was required. So I think that, and you'll see in FAME's testimony that they had suggested maybe a small administrative fee would help with that with the financial institutions. But I would love to hear from the financial institutions some more information. And I hope that adding to the fund would help to clarify what the bill's intent is, which is to pay back the full amount of any defaulted loan.
Representative Flynn.
Hopefully very low risk.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yep.
Thank you, Representative. Of the 7,700 employees of the shipyard, how many are unionized?
I'm not sure. I do have some union members behind me. They can
Okay.
probably answer that.
In cases of furlough, in cases of layoffs, do the unions extend any benefits to their members in the way of loans or anything?
I'll let the union answer that. I'm not sure. I do know that the local credit unions and financial institutions did indicate that they did extend some no interest loans.
Representative Chimino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Quick question. So you said in your statement that there were 151 loans. 84 of them went to the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. Of the other 67, do you know where those went? Who took those loans out?
I think FAME can probably answer that question. I believe that Bill Norbert is here to testify, but I'm not certain the location of that. And in his feedback to us, he didn't indicate where those other ones were from. I think he probably clarified the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard because poor Bill heard from me an awful lot. And so did FAME, heard from me an awful lot. So I think that's why they broke it down for. I think that, the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard has a huge amount of federal employees in comparison to other locations in Maine. So maybe that's why they gave us that breakdown as well. I have to say that considering that this program rolled out 1 to 2 weeks before the shutdown, I don't want to give you the impression that I am not thankful for what happened, because there were some significant positive things that I heard from those 84 people that got those loans through this program. But I do think that the program could run smoother and could help more people. And I hope that this bill does that.
Further questions? Representative Flynn.
Will this extend to BIW as well, or just Portsmouth?
It's all federal and state.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions?
And that's what the original bill was. This is just some clarification on the original law that's already been passed.
Further questions? See, none.
You guys are much nicer than labor was to me a few minutes ago. Thank you.
Just wait till the work session. Any other co-sponsors that wish to testify? Welcome, Madam President.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Senator Bailey, Representative Matheson, and esteemed members of the Joint Standing Committee on Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services. My name is Maddie Daughtry. I serve as the President of the Maine Senate and proudly represent Senate District 23, including Brunswick, Freeport, Harpswell, Pownell, Shebig Island, and part of Yarmouth, as well as a substantial portion of General Dynamics BIW as well. I'm honored to testify in favor of LD 2102, an act to clarify and strengthen the government shutdown loan guarantee program. Last session, I was thrilled to be a co-sponsor of Representative Matheson's bill LD 874, establishing the government shutdown loan guarantee program. This program is about more than just paperwork. It's about providing a lifeline to Maine families who dedicate their careers to public service. It creates a safety net for our federal employees so that should the government shut down for an extended period of time, these employees can still get by. Just a year ago, when we established the program, we did not anticipate going into the longest federal government shutdown in history, just days after the law took effect. During that shutdown, I received firsthand accounts from constituents on how the cessation of federal salaries, families were forced to choose between paying rent or utilities, covering mortgage payments, or putting food on the table as they missed paycheck after paycheck. That experience gave us the opportunity to see the needs of our community members during a prolonged shutdown firsthand. With the ongoing uncertainty in federal funding and the very real possibility of another government shutdown looming at the end of this month, the stakes are high for Maine families. This bill is a direct response to the lessons we learned last fall, making needed changes to the loan guarantee program. It strengthens the program by clarifying who qualifies for assistance, ensuring that more employees in need can access the program, and by specifying the situations in which the Finance Authority of Maine may temporarily suspend honoring loan claims. These clarifications make the program more effective, accessible, and responsive for those whom it's meant to serve. Maine federal workers cannot be left vulnerable to financial hardship caused by circumstances beyond their control. I urge this committee to pass LD 2102, and this is a practical common sense measure that will protect hardworking Mainers and strengthen our state's commitment to those who serve the public every day from the worst impacts of a future government shutdown. I want to thank the bill's sponsor, as well as the financial institutions and everyone who has worked to bring back feedback of how this existing program can be made even better for Maine families. And I'm happy to attempt any questions.
Thank you. Questions from committee members?
Oh, you're letting me off easy. Let's hope it goes as well when I
Yeah.
come back later. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other co-sponsors? All right, anyone else wishing to testify in favor of this bill? Welcome.
Good afternoon, Senator Bailey, Representative Matheson, and honorable members on the Committee on Joint Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services. My name is Elena Schaefer, and I'm here today in strong support of LD 2102. I am a journeyman marine pipe fitter. I'm a single mom and a proud federal worker. I worked my way through a rigorous apprenticeship program, graduated into my trade, and show up every day to serve my country. I also represent thousands of blue-collar workers in the state of Maine through my role as president of the Metal Trades Council at Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. I speak today not only as an advocate, but as someone who's lived through the last government shutdown alongside all the workers that I represent. In the fall of 2025, Maine took an important step by creating the government shutdown loan guarantee program, and I believe that the intent was right. The problem was that in practice, the program didn't exactly work the way that it was supposed to. Many workers who desperately needed interest-free loans did not have access to them, not because they didn't qualify, but because their local banks simply chose not to participate. Others were told their bank would front their paycheck, but only with interest or with hard credit checks that put them at further financial risk.
I want to be clear, I was one of the lucky ones. I bank at Kennebunk Savings Bank, and the people who work there are my neighbors and my friends. I see them every week. When the shutdown happened, I applied for a shutdown loan, and thanks to the program, my family was able to make it through the shutdown without worrying about whether our bills could be paid or whether there was food on our table. This was exactly what the program was meant to do. Once the shutdown ended, I got my paycheck, began paying my loan back. Every worker in Maine deserves the same access that I had. But most of our workers were not that lucky. For example, Lighthouse Credit Union, which has a branch located on Portsmouth Naval Shipyard and serves a very large number of our workers, was only offering $5,000 loans at 3% interest with a full hard credit check. Many of the workers, including people who had had direct deposit with this institution for years, were denied these loans. These employees were left scrambling. Other banks required credit checks, charged interest, placed so many barriers on the process that real financial relief was simply out of reach. Some institutions that did not participate pulled the full amount of the workers' loans out as soon as the government reopened, leaving them panicked and trying to figure out automatic payments they had already rearranged. To make matters worse, when federal workers are deemed essential and required to work without pay, like thousands of workers at Portsmouth Naval Shipyard, they're not even eligible to apply for unemployment. They're told they must keep reporting to work every single day, but are not given any income to do so. I'll never forget the tears in our workers' eyes, heads down as they showed up to the food pantry that we as a union established on base just so that they could eat lunch at the job that they were being forced to still come to every day. These are skilled trades workers, engineers, and support staff who never missed a bill in their lives, suddenly relying on donated groceries just to get through their shift. And there was another group completely locked out of help. Mainers who were assigned to temporary duty stations, often as sole providers of their families who were still here in Maine, could not apply in person for loans at all. Federal travel rules prevent employees who are on TDY, temporary duty, from traveling more than 50 miles outside of their duty station, making it physically impossible for them to access in-person banking services. So, even when help technically existed, the structure of the program made it unreachable. As a single parent, I know exactly what that pressure feels like. You don't get to pause your rent, groceries, childcare, gas just because Congress can't pass a budget. And the truth is, we can't control the political dysfunction that happens in Washington, D.C. But I believe we do have a moral obligation here in Maine to take care of our neighbors, to make sure that when working people are put in an impossible position through no fault of their own, we don't leave them to suffer alone.
If you could wrap up.
Sure.
Thank you. Take a breath.
I timed myself at 3 minutes. I promise I did. The fixes in LD 2102 are responsible and practical. And I urge you to support this bill to ensure the protections for our workers when we need it the most. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Questions from committee members? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Others wishing to testify in favor of this bill? Welcome.
Hi.
Chairwoman Matheson, Chairwoman Bailey, and distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before this committee today in support of LD 2102, an act to clarify and strengthen the government shutdown loan guarantee program. I apologize for my dress. I just came from my firehouse this morning. Generally, I have a suit on. My name is Kyle Mosier. I'm the 5th District Vice President for the Professional Firefighters of Maine. I'm here today representing the views of our executive board and over 1,300 professional firefighters, paramedics, EMTs, and dispatchers throughout the state. PFF Maine's 5th District is comprised of all federal and private sector firefighters in the state that belong to the International Association of Firefighters. I am also myself a federal firefighter at the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard, where I've worked for the last 9.5 years. Having, just like many others, gone through the longest federal government shutdown that our country has seen, I want to testify to ensure the importance of LD 2102 is understood. LD 2102 will have a direct effect on over 70 federal firefighters across the state of Maine. These firefighters are employed by the United States government. They are the first line of emergency response at locations such as the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard and Naval Computers and Telecommunications area in Cutler, Maine. We are essential employees who must report to work even when the federal government is shut down for a lack in appropriations. Fire apparatus and ambulances still must be staffed, emergency calls answered, even during a shutdown. Not only are our members reporting to work and risking their lives, they have to worry about paying their bills, keeping the heat on in the winter, childcare services due to our long work shifts, groceries to feed their families, gas to get back and forth to the firehouse, and the list can go on. And that goes for all my brother and sister federal employees throughout the state. As federal employees, we must maintain security clearances that are conditions of our employment. Federal workers are some of the most reliable individuals to pay back a loan from a financial institution, as it can have a direct effect on our security clearance, and thus in turn, our jobs. Federal employees receive their paychecks from the government once it reopens and returns to normal operations. This allows for the individuals to take their back paychecks and make payments toward the loan repayment, and in some cases, the entire loan that they took out immediately. The point of this program was to make it easier for federal employees to access interest-free loans during government shutdowns to make sure their bills could still be paid. However, the rollout of the program, when it was needed the most, was the opposite for many of our members at the PFF Maine. Financial institutions charging 3% on these loans, 3% interest on these loans, or requiring proof of unemployment before being able to utilize a loan are just a few of the issues faced by our members. No federal firefighters in Maine were unemployed during the last government shutdown. They reported to work for 43 days and did not receive compensation. To ask them to provide proof of unemployment in order to utilize a program that was specifically designed to help them pay their bills during a shutdown is absurd, and those financial institutions should be ashamed that they even asked. Members have had to use alternative methods to keep afloat. Members taking from their retirement plans, going out and finding other financial institutions, including online banking, well outside of the state of Maine, in order to keep their bills paid, their kids fed, lights on, heat in the winter. Our parent union, the International Association of Firefighters, even developed a program connecting our federal members throughout the United States with our municipal brothers and sisters in cities and towns, asking for donations, gas cards, money, whatever they could provide. So, and I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that IFF affiliates here in the state of Maine stepped up. So local fire departments here in the state of Maine donated to federal firefighters throughout this country because they needed to go somewhere else to be able to pay their bills. Federal employees should not be punished for not receiving a paycheck outside of their control, and that's what this bill intends to provide. The professional firefighters of Maine are in full support of this piece of legislation. We ask for your support in passing LD 2102 to ensure federal firefighters in the state of Maine have a safeguard during federal government shutdowns. And before I close, I will also say that you'll have testimony from my brother and union president, Scott Lazat of F316, who was personally and more directly affected by the absurdity of this rollout. But I want to thank you for your time and attention, and I would be happy to address any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions from committee members? Representative Flynn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for joining us. My union question, can you answer that one? You might wait for the next guy.
Well, I can answer. I can
How
try to
many
answer.
in the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard? There's 7,700 employees. How many of those 7,700 are unionized?
That question I can't answer.
Okay. And does the union offer any type of short-term loan program for
My union
shutdowns?
does not. My union does not.
Your union does.
My union does not. The
Thank
International
you.
Association of Firefighters, and I believe, and Elena will attest to this. I'm sure if I'm wrong, I believe there's 5 major unions on the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. The IAFF, Local F123, the Firefighters Union is just one.
My simple question, I'm trying to determine if the unions offer any type of program support for layoffs, shutdowns, furloughs, anything.
Every union is different.
Thank you.
Further questions? Representative Clucci.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much. You mentioned that paying back loans is directly related to security clearances. Can you help me understand a little bit more about that?
Sure. So, as most of us as federal employees, especially at the shipyard, have to maintain a security clearance, in the event that you do not, if you default on loans and whatnot, that pops on your security clearance, and then you become potential of a risk to security. And because of that, you can be, your clearance can be lowered and or revoked, in which case, for many of us, especially firefighters, if you do not maintain a security clearance, that's a condition of employment, you are fired.
As part of a security clearance, they pull a credit report.
And yes, that is correct. That's a continuously monitored thing by the security of the Navy.
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to testify in favor?
Good afternoon, Senator Bailey and Representative Matheson. I am Christine Lizotte, and I represent AFGE Local 1164. We are the Social Security local for all of New England. This has been a challenge, to say the least. The first thing I want to let you know is thank you for spearheading with LD 874. You set the bar high for other states, keeping in mind to cover all of New England. Some financial institutions in other states acknowledged what we did in Maine and honored this. So thank you. That being said, I need you to understand that Social Security employees have to pass a suitability review. It's every 3 years. There was great concern as to whether we would default on these loans. I'm here to tell you that after 22 years, I would not default on a loan, neither would any of my employees or other members, for the simple fact that we would be terminated. They can pull a suitability review at any point in time, and it's a little different than a security clearance. It literally is year to year. They get my credit report, and that would be the end of my career. That being said, there was a great amount of unemployment confusion. I too answered calls for 43 days, morning, noon, and night, from people that were fearful, that did everything right. To answer your question, unions are not in the business of giving loans. That's not what we do. Department of Labor says nay, nay. That being said, we did take the calls. We did learn how to turn people's lights back on. We did talk to the landlords. We did send people to food banks. We did it all. So basically, there are two different categories. There are people that went to work and didn't get paid, and people who didn't go to work and didn't get paid. And you need to understand that there's a huge differentiation between the two. And that's pretty much it. I'm here to support this. I'll answer or take any questions that you have. I do not know how many employees at the Navy Yard are members, but I can tell you that in the state of Maine, in New England, I have 1,200 members, and of those 50 live in Maine. And I heard from all 50. So.
Thank you. Further questions from committee members? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the room wishing to testify in favor of this bill?
Classes. Good afternoon, Senator Bailey, Representative Matheson, and members of the Committee on Health, Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services. You have my testimony, so I'll be brief and not to reiterate. My name is John Levitt. I'm the Regional Manager for the Carpenters Union, Locals 349 and 352. I also cover plastic fabricators and shipwrights in Local 3073 in the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. And I ask you to support LD 2102. Excuse me. I want to thank you for your efforts on passing LD 874 last session. We believe that was a solution for a glaring issue our government employees may face. As we know, the government did shut down for 43 days, and members went to work unpaid during that time, which put great strain on them and their family. You know, they're working people 43 days go to work for over a month without, you know, to pay and still paying child daycare, paying for gas, buying lunch. It drains really quickly on a working family. But they did it. They did, you know, I heard a lot of, you know, is it worth it? Are they gonna get laid off? Are they gonna get fired? Will there be a job after, or are they just gonna get let go? So there was threats above it on what their future was. Were they gonna go to back? Would they have a job when the government shutdown ended, right? And hopefully, and no one expected it to last that long, but it did. So the members applied for loans and found it extremely difficult to be approved. There was quite an extensive background check and credit check. And one particular bank, which has been brought up a couple times, has charged a 3% loan, 3% interest when it was supposed to be 0% interest. So there was just a lot of confusion with us included. Members would call. The AFL-CIO was extremely helpful, just guiding everyone through it on a federal level, because it was pretty much for me, I had never been through it, and I didn't have any answers for the members. So LD 2102 cleans up these unforeseen issues that we faced with government workers to support their family during future government shutdowns with a little less stress. We hope there won't be another government shutdown, but I think that's maybe a little naive with what's going on. It seems like it's right around the corner. So again, my name's John Levitt with the Carpenters Union and Local 3073 with the plastic fabricators and shipwrights in the Portsmouth Navy Shipyard. And I ask you to support LD 2102. I do not know. I have 300 members in 3073. 2 of them applied for the loan and did pay it back. And the word got out that it was difficult to be granted the loan. So a lot of people just didn't bother, which is why we're here. You know, they should be taken care of. They shouldn't have to worry about that on top of doing their job and being in just the uncertainty. It's very stressful on a family, as I'm sure you all know. But Elena from the metal trades would be able to answer that question, I believe. If that's, you stumped the board on that one. Happy to answer any other questions other than that one.
Any other questions from committee members? All right, seeing none. Thank you very much. Anyone else? I see someone coming up.
Good afternoon, Senator Bailey, Representative Matheson, and members of the Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services Committee. My name is Adam Good. I'm the Legislative and Political Director at the Maine AFL-CIO. We represent 40,000 working people in the state of Maine. We work to improve the lives and working conditions of our members and all working people. We testify in strong support of LD 2102. Last summer, Governor Mills signed LD 874 into law. That legislation, which earned a 12-0 vote out of this committee, created a loan guarantee program offering interest-free loans to help cover lost income for essential state and federal employees during government shutdowns lasting more than 7 days. When the state or federal government shuts down due to political brinksmanship, it's not politicians that have to face the real consequences, it's working families. State and federal employees in Maine are the backbone of essential services. They provide health care, maintain roads, provide public safety, and protect our most vulnerable. The bill went into effect in early October, and we immediately started the longest federal government shutdown in history. We are certainly grateful that FAME and other parties were quick to implement this and that an option did exist for some people during the shutdown. You've heard from a number of workers today. I would remind you that it's not just folks that work at Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. I think you'll have online testimony from a firefighter in Cutler. A common example that you're all familiar with are TSA agents, Transportation Security Administration folks. They do not make a ton of money. They do very difficult work, and they certainly had to go to work regularly without being paid. Many of these workers struggled to afford basic necessities. I'm going to jump around a little bit because I don't have the exact answer to Representative Flynn's question around membership and numbers. I will confidently say that there's not a union-based lending program where unions are giving loans or financial support to workers. Workers got gas cards to pay for gas to get to and from work when they were not paid. Solidarity Harvest, which is a assistance program out of Food and Medicine and the Eastern Maine Labor Council that donates Thanksgiving baskets to workers, probably donated a couple hundred Thanksgiving baskets to workers, but there's not a fund. And I would remind you that if you're in the committee across the hall, you know that unions are required to represent all of their members, whether they're dues paying members or not. And most of these unions are open shop unions where whether or not somebody even pays the union dues to be a member, they still get the representation. They still get the just cause. They still get all those types of supports. So we talked about the 3 lenders that participated. For a vast majority of federal workers, there was not a lender willing to participate in the program that would cover them. You're going to probably hear from the credit unions where there were many lenders that offered similar programs to their members. But if you had one of these jobs and on October 1st, you were not already a member of that lending institution, or you didn't meet the geographic requirement of living in a certain county, you were out of luck. And there were certainly many, many union members that did not have an option to receive money to be lent during this. One of the lenders that did participate, and I think was trying very hard, just could not keep up with the demand. I mean, Kennebunk Savings was involved in this program. They returned my calls regularly to help get information to unions, and they had to push pause on it because they could not keep up with the amount of people that wanted to participate in the program. I know my time is limited. I wrote great testimony. I would just say that lines 28 and 29 are very important. We think that is one of the solutions to make this more accessible to people. And we want to work with FAME and the lenders to make this work. I mean, the unemployment insurance thing, we would never want a worker who's working without getting paid to apply for unemployment insurance and then get a benefit overpayment recovery process set in place and potentially be disqualified from future unemployment. So like that absolutely needs to be clear amongst all the people. We don't want people that are working without being paid to be applying for unemployment because they think they have to do that to get these loans. So happy to answer any questions. And I brought chocolate because I used to serve on this committee. So I'm not just weird and trying to bribe you all.
Representative Olson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, if the union had gone on strike, then the people, you have a strike fund. Has the national looked at all at changing their rules that are to cover something like that out of the strike funds to be able to help people in a time like that and do it as a repayment loan or whatever?
I don't know if the national has looked at that. You know, I'm just the legislative and political director at the AFL-CIO, but strikes are very serious activities where lots of people really struggle. And I think that when a union goes on strike, it's to make wins for the union, to have some type of gains materially for workers. And so I think that there'd be a lot of discord in the labor movement to use strike funds to cover a mistake made by Democrats and Republicans in Congress to not pass a budget.
Further questions?
Okay. And I've also been told by voices in my head that they can't legally strike. It would be not a legal strike because there's not public sector strikes. So.
Thank you. Further questions? Seeing none, thank you
Good to
very
see you.
much. Anyone else in the room wishing to testify in favor? All right, we do have some people on Zoom. So Edna, if you want to move, is Joshua still there? All right, if you want to move him over, please. Okay, Joshua Johnson, can you turn your camera on? Okay. Oh, there he is. We can see you. Go ahead whenever you're ready. Oops, we can't hear you though. Yeah, you're not showing as being muted, so I would think it's on your computer. I know sometimes I forget to put the microphone on my computer. I'm just guessing. We still can't hear you.
That's testimony.
Do we?
Yeah, I think it's Dr. Johnson.
Oh, yes. So Joshua, just so you know, we do have your written testimony. So if you're not able to do it verbally, just know that your voice will be heard.
We try to get off and come back in, but that's no.
Okay, yeah, and if you want to try to log out and come back in and see if that works, we do have a couple other people. Or not, it's up to you, okay? So try that and we'll call in some more people. Thank you. So Edna, do you want to try to move over Scott Lazat? That's right. Hi, we can see you and let's see if we can hear you.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good morning, Senator Bailey, Representative Matheson, and distinguished members of this committee. My name is Scott Lazat. I am President of International Association of Firefighters, Local F316, and I represent the federal firefighters stationed at the Naval Support Activity in Cutler, Maine, in Washington County. Proudly honor this opportunity to testify today at the state level and join my fellow brother and sister federal labor union leaders in an effort to not reiterate a lot of the information that's in my testimony, written testimony that's submitted that's already been explained today. I guess I'll concentrate on how my membership was directly affected and some of the barriers that we have. So today I'm testifying in support of LD 2102, with the aim to strengthen the program that was implemented last year. As this program rolled out, as we started the longest government shutdown in history, I took a proactive approach with my membership in an attempt to kind of get a streamlined process that I could deliver to them that they could utilize. I personally reached out to all of the local lenders and financial institutions in Washington County. At that time, there was zero participation. The members that I represent, which is 10 to 12, just in my local, and another 60 or so within the Cutler proper installation. As far as I know, there was zero loans to any of the members in Washington County that I represent through this program. Some of the barriers that I was able to kind of realize through talking with numerous members of financial institutions was the requirement to not run a credit check, was a barrier for risk management for the financial institutions. The unemployment requirement to apply for unemployment first was a significant barrier. And the rollout of the program itself had a lot of confusion initially, specifically in my area. Washington County is a very rural area, so we do not have the number of financial institutions available, such as down in southern Maine or at the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard area. The LD 2102, my interpretation, it fixes some things as Adam testified to earlier. The eligibility does not depend on unemployment. It removes a 10% guarantee cap, which was another hurdle that I heard from numerous lender members from financial institutions, because that creates a first come, first served type of risk that's a lot harder for them to take on. I guess one of the things I want to touch on is I'll give a personal example. I bank with Navy Federal Credit Union for my active duty days, which we do not have a branch in the state of Maine. When a program like this rolls out and is streamlined and efficient, it works extremely well. With Navy Federal Union, there was zero paperwork. It was just click the button to enroll. They utilize your already direct deposit verification information, automatically calculate what your paycheck would look like, and just deposit it automatically. Once that shutdown closes and your back pay, your lump sum of back pay is paid out and deposited, is pulled back, and the loan is finalized and paid back in full. So there are examples where programs like this are streamlined and work and overcome some of those barriers that we saw during the shutdown. My members were directly affected, and most of my testimony has already been said today, but we as federal firefighters work a 72-hour work week, so we do not have the capability to go out and look for part-time work. 72 hours is a long work week for most people. And I guess at this point, you guys have my written testimony, and I welcome any questions that I can attempt to answer.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lazat. And I kind of knew from the beginning of your testimony that you're going to say you were a firefighter because you kept saying good morning. And I'm like, oh, he does.
We're nothing if not cordial.
Representative Chimino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here, Scott. Just a question. It was mentioned that a lot of the security clearances can be revoked if loans aren't paid, so that federal employees are actually the best at paying back their loans. So my question to you is, for people who were denied loans or were not given loans, do you have any cases where their security clearances were reduced or where their job was jeopardized because they were not able to make their monthly payments, not on the loan, but on their bills, which then would be reflected in their credit report?
I do not. Thank you for your question. I do not, and the main reason behind that is my members seeked alternative methods, most of which have already been testified today, but one of the bigger ones is hardship TSP withdrawals, which is the federal government's 401k version. That comes with a taxable event, taxes that are due at the end of the year. That comes with early withdrawal penalties and stipends long-term retirement growth. So all of my members were able to kind of offset that. But yes, the security clearance is a real issue. It's a continually monitored program. We don't do like 10-year renewals anymore. It's just monitored on a day or monthly basis by those agencies. So when you have a default or a default that goes into collections, that essentially makes you a national security risk and vulnerable to bribery, to bad actors, foreign actors, etc. So there is a reason why debt is considered a risk factor for security clearances. A majority of the leaks and selling of sensitive national security information stem from financial incentives.
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And is Beth there? Yes. Okay, you can move her over. Good afternoon, welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much. I'm guessing you can hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great. Awesome. Well, Senator Bailey, Representative Matheson, and members of the Committee on Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Affairs. I'm Beth White. I'm the Director of Politics and Legislation for the Maine Service Employees Association, Local 1989 of the Service Employees International Union. So we're a labor union representing over 13,000 Maine workers, including workers across all three branches of state government. And we're here today in support of 2102. Thank you, Representative Matheson, for sponsoring the bill. And thank you to everyone on this committee for the work you did on LD 874 last session. And I think, as you've heard, this legislation would make meaningful improvements to that legislation and just help improve the government shutdown loan guarantee program so that more folks are able to access it. I have submitted my written testimony. I'm not going to read the whole thing because a lot of the points have already been made. And a lot of it is just, explaining how a shutdown works, which I think you probably understand at this point. But I do want to make a couple of key points, because I think a lot of the testimony has focused today on federal workers, and rightfully so, since those are the people who, have been impacted by a recent shutdown and have been accessing this program. So our state employees have not yet had to access this program. However, I will flag that during last fall, we did have some folks who are technically state employees, but are federally funded, who the state was able to kind of keep afloat because they knew the back money would be coming eventually. But we were only maybe a week or two from seeing state employee layoffs as well. And this program would have been, absolutely essential for those folks to access. However, and we've seen, I think during this last shutdown, I don't personally have numbers, but folks are, as you've heard, very reliable in paying back those loans once their back pay does come through. But unfortunately, as you've heard, it also became clear that, not a large number of workers were able to participate in the program, and because of how difficult it was to access the loans. So we feel strongly that the changes in this legislation would help address the main concerns that lenders raised when choosing not to participate in the program, which would in turn make it more accessible to workers in the event of future shutdowns, which I know there's, already rumors flowing about a potential federal shutdown. So one issue we did see when the program rolled out in 2025 that we were beginning to prepare for, and I know others have referenced here as well, is that the lack of lenders participating across the state, and especially in regions where our members are working. So while we have our highest member density in Kennebec County, we do have members in every county of the state. And we were working a little bit to try to encourage lenders in Kennebec County and in some of those other areas to adopt the loan program in the event that we faced. Well, we were hoping they would do it just in general because federal workers were laid off and those folks exist across the state. But we were also, doing that work proactively in case our members had faced layoffs as well because of the prolonged shutdown. So we feel strongly that the changes that are proposed in this legislation would help address that issue of lack of participation across the state. So I think with that, I think I'll leave it at that because I think most of my other points have been made and you have my written testimony. So thank you so much for your time and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. That was exactly 3 minutes. So perfect.
Ooh, I'm getting good.
Questions from committee members? Seeing none, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And did Joshua Johnson try to come back in?
Yes.
Okay, let's try him again. See if we can hear him this time. Josh, oh, there he is. Okay. All right, we can see you. And you are on mute, so you need to take that off. Let's see if we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
We can. Great. Welcome
Awesome.
back. Go
Thank
ahead.
you. I apologize for the technical difficulties. So first, I would like to thank Senator Bailey and Representative Masterson, as well as the rest of the committee, for giving me the opportunity to speak on this bill. As you had noted earlier, I did submit a written testimony as well. And much like before, a lot of those points had been made. One of the things I would like to say is that LD 874 was a bright spot for Maine residents who are also federal employees. We are regularly facing the threat of shutdowns, and being able to know that there is a form of lifeline available for a lot of the people that I represent is an awesome thing. And I think that I forgot to introduce myself, and I apologize for that. Joshua Johnson. I do work at the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. I am a president of one of the local unions, the machinists, and I do hear a lot from the employees that I represent there. And some of the points of difficulty that they had brought up when it came to the rollout of this particular program, I know that it has been spoken on before, but there was discrepancies in the amount that they believed that they were going to receive based on the potential for unemployment as it was being communicated to them. Obviously, in a shutdown, we're still required to show up to work, and we don't qualify for unemployment. Insinuations of creditworthiness being a deciding factor in the receipts of these loans. And for a lot of the people that I dealt with who spoke to me on these, they did mention that that played a role in their option to go look for alternative methods, sometimes from more predatory lending practices or from taking out of their own retirement. Again, I kind of included a lot of this in my written statement, as well as my own personal experience with the loan process. One of the things that had come up was a question about the unions. And I did want to point out that there is a difference in how federal unions versus private unions can interact with different things. I know that there was mentions of a strike earlier, strike funds. It's something that federal workers don't have access to because of what we're governed by. And also where we're required to cover anyone and everyone who works on the shipyard that falls under our areas of responsibility, we don't collect dues the same way that unions or areas like BIW would. There's nothing that forces people to join up or sign up with us, so we're not collecting dues from hundreds of people or everyone who signed up here. I believe currently when our dues collection was shut down, I had 10 dues paying members, people who just decided to stay with us through the last executive order that affected that. I did just want to bring up that point. And I'll leave it with the request for a breakdown of numbers versus how many is unionized versus whatever. I do know that Lena Schaefer would be able to answer that pretty clearly if we're still looking for that information. And the last point that I will make, and I'll leave it at this, is this, I'm obviously speaking in support of this bill because it does offer straightforward, simple to understand improvements that will hopefully reaffirm Maine's commitment to protecting its federal workers and offering them some semblance of peace of mind, especially as we're staring down the barrel of potentially another shutdown in just a few days. So I hope that this is something that can pass through and that we can get more people involved and assist more families in any future shutdowns that we deal with. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you. Any questions from committee members? Representative Arford.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being here and bringing your experience to us. You mentioned in your testimony that some people had to resort to more predatory loaning options. And can you just take us a minute to elaborate on what those were?
I had some people come to me and talk to me about finding online loans or short payday term loans with the higher interest rates versus being able to find something more affordable. Usually those that are available to people who either don't have initial credit scores or lower credit scores or just don't want to take on the potential for another longer term loan. just general aspects like that, or even for me personally, I believe that the bank on the shipyard that was introducing 3% loans even to their own members, they kind of have the people on the shipyard being the only banking institution on the shipyard, instituting the idea of interest on loans for members of the shipyard who aren't getting paid. I would personally consider that a predatory practice, but that is just my personal opinion.
Thank you very much.
Further questions? Seeing none, I'm glad you were able to join us. Thank you.
Thank you.
And is there anyone else online? No. Okay, thank you. So I'll just call again anyone else wishing to testify in favor. All right, anyone wishing to testify in opposition to this bill? Anyone wishing to testify neither for nor against?
Good afternoon, Senator Bailey, Representative Matheson, distinguished members of the committee. My name is Bill Norbert. I'm the Governmental Affairs Manager at the Finance Authority of Maine, and I'm here to speak neither for nor against LD 2102. I think you all know FAME is a quasi-independent state agency whose mission is to enrich business and educational outcomes through relevant, timely financial support to Maine's people. One of the programs we administer, as you've heard, is the Government Shutdown Loan Guarantee Program. This bill would amend certain program eligibility criteria and remove the 10% overall program cap. The program, as you know, is administered by FAME in partnership with the State Treasurer, the Bureau of Financial Institutions, and Maine's lending community. And in a memo to the committee in January, I provided you an update on what we had seen during the first round of funding, the first shutdown. And those figures have been recited here previously. So as Representative Matheson noted, first of all, the shutdown was the longest federal shutdown in history, 43 days. 3 main lending institutions chose to participate. You heard those are Seaport Credit Union, Kennebunk Savings Bank, and Franklin Savings Bank. A total of 151 loans were made, totaling $758.6 thousand. Over the course of administering the program, we received feedback from participating and non-participating lenders because we stayed in active communication with a lot of you, especially Representative Matheson and concerned stakeholders, our friend Mr. Good at AFL-CIO, and Maine's lenders who we're in frequent communication with. And we did work hard and quickly to set up the program, and I'm really proud of the job we did. If you check out FAME's website, we have all sorts of frequently asked questions, including accurate information about the 10% cap. We have a video recording that folks can watch explaining the different steps of the program. So I'm really pleased by what our staff was able to do there. But, you know, as was noted, there were few participating lenders, and that is unfortunate. Some of the feedback we heard was the same as what's been recited to you today. Either that the institution was already providing something similar on their own and they preferred to go with that. Some said that the creditworthiness, the failure to allow a creditworthiness check was a hindrance. They just weren't ready to take that risk. Even though there was state money to guarantee from FAME, they did realize it was limited, $250,000, and they weren't sure whether there would be enough to cover their loans. So some of the advice was to increase the guarantee percentage, which you've done here in the proposal. Absolutely. You've, in fact, removed the guarantee percentage and made it 100%. To consider full state backing, that is, if the money ran out and if FAME for some reason couldn't pay back, that there would be the ability for the state, the full faith and credit of the state, to be behind these as well, so that they'd know they would be made whole ultimately. You heard about some wanting an administrative or origination fee to help them pay for their staffing of it. And I already mentioned the creditworthiness, so I won't repeat that. We support greater program utilization of and funding for the program. We are agnostic on the program eligibility changes. We have no dog in that fight, no comments on that. The one thing we would note is removing the 10% cap. We're fine with increasing it, but we're concerned that it gives the idea that basically participating lenders will be guaranteed by FAME 100%, regardless of funding. I realize that $250,000 more is added to the pot, and hopefully we won't ever need that much. But I just think there should be either some language that says, if funds go below a certain amount, if available funds that have been paid back go below a certain amount, I don't know what that would be, 50,000, 10,000, that there could be some sort of temporary hold while FAME communicates with the state treasurer and the legislature to see about more funding. But there's a lot we don't know right now because the lenders haven't had to approach us to make them whole because they, as was pointed out, there's the 90-day grace period, but then there's a 6-month period whereby the lenders are supposed to work it out and try and get repaid. And only then can they then approach FAME. So we're still not at that point where we have a lot of information about how many folks will repay loans. But those are some of our suggestions. We certainly appreciate this opportunity to provide feedback, and we look forward to working with the committee and with the Maine's lenders and the workers of Maine to make this better and meaningful. Thank you very much. Happy to try and answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions from committee members? Representative Chimino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What are your, not to put you on the spot, but I guess I am.
That's what I'm here for.
What are your thoughts on mandatory repayment? So there's a loan that's made up front. Then it wouldn't even matter about the 10%. There's a loan that's made up front. When the check is cut from the government to reimburse the employee, that amount goes directly back to the bank to cover the loan.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure how I feel about that, to be honest, because I don't know enough. I know our friends in the union know a lot. I know as a former union member who was on strike at one point, it can be really hard and terribly hard. And also, when you get the back pay, who's to say it can all go to paying back this loan, even though it's important to do? You might have more pressing or other competing obligations, food on the table, daycare, healthcare, who knows? So I guess I'd want to learn more about that. Because I'm not sure exactly how it works with back pay and the priorities, but certainly I support repayment of loans. I bet everyone in the room supports repayment of loans, but it can be very difficult after particularly a prolonged period of shutdown.
I guess my thought is, let's say somebody borrows $1,000 to cover expenses. If you're being responsible and only living within that, then when you get your check, that's basically covering that.
Yeah.
How are you out I don't know how you're out that money as far as the person who took out the loan. It should balance. It should be 100% balance.
Yeah, I can't speak for the workers who are going through this now, but I would imagine that the funds they received before went to meet a variety of pressing needs. And the back pay that comes in, I'm not sure that they could immediately pay the whole loan back at once. So I just don't know enough, Representative Chimino. I'm sorry.
Further questions? Representative Foley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just curious, you talk about the having the full faith and credit of the state of Maine backing these loans. I don't see that in this bill.
Well,
that's just a suggestion.
That was a feedback some of the feedback we received from some of the participating or non-participating lenders of things that could enhance the program to make it more attractive. It's not a FAME suggestion per se.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Further questions? So I know you don't have any information yet on defaults
Right.
because we're still in the grace period and
Right.
then got 6 months to pay back. But do you have any information in terms of, how many loans were made? Do you know how many are still outstanding?
Right.
In other words, how many have been paid back?
Right. I asked that, anticipating such a question, I asked that before today, and we don't have that information yet. I can go see if we can try and get that information from the lenders. I could also try and see where the other loans went. I remember when Representative Chimino asked about that. Anecdotally, I heard it went to workers, as you can well imagine, at border crossing areas, at Acadia National Park. But I don't know for sure. But the lenders would have that information, so it might take some time to assemble that, but
So maybe for our work session.
I will try.
Okay.
We shall see.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you very
Anything else?
much.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to testify neither for nor against?
Hello. Good afternoon, Senator Bailey, Representative Matheson, and esteemed members of the Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services Committee. My name is Jared Gay, and I'm the Director of Advocacy and Compliance at the Maine Credit Union League. The Maine Credit Union League is the trade association for Maine's 48 credit unions. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on this bill. I'd like to start by thanking Representative Matheson and the bill's co-sponsors for their leadership on this issue and for establishing the original government shutdown loan guarantee program. Maine's credit unions share the same goal reflected in both the original program and this bill, doing everything possible to support government employees and their families during the financial uncertainty of a shutdown. My testimony today is offered neither for nor against this bill. Instead, I'm here to share facts and perspectives from Maine's credit unions and thank the committee for its continued attention to improving this voluntary program. During the most recent government shutdown, Maine's credit unions acted quickly to assist affected employees through programs developed internally outside of the state program. We're proud to share that we dispersed over $1.7 million in 0% loans in our credit unions that did a program independent of the state. Importantly, many of our credit unions have offered similar shutdown assistance consistently over multiple shutdowns in the past, and the inception of these programs predates the state's guarantee program. As a result of that, credit unions were able to rely on established models that staff understood, members recognized, and institutions trusted from both operational and risk management perspectives. These programs generally included 0% interest loans tied to a member's net pay, often capped at 1 month's salary, with flexible repayment terms. Many credit unions paired these loans with skip-a-pay options, loan deferrals, fee waivers, or other relief to help members manage cash flow. Following the most recent shutdown, the League surveyed credit unions to better understand their experience with the state program and why some chose not to participate. Credit unions consistently expressed in the survey results appreciation for the intent of the program and recognize that it can be a helpful tool, particularly for institutions that may not be positioned to run their own program or establish their own program or offerings of their own. At the same time, several common themes emerged from the survey results. Credit unions raised concerns about assuming credit risk without the ability to underwrite loans using standard practices, uncertainty about the scope and reliability of the loan guarantee, and the possibility that available funds could be exhausted. Others cited administrative complexity, short repayment timelines, and the challenges aligning the program with existing lending systems and staffing capacity. These considerations were often evaluated in light of credit unions' prior experience administering their own programs. Considering this feedback, we were encouraged to see that this bill removes the prior 10% backstop language. As Representative Matheson mentioned in her testimony, this caused some confusion for many credit unions during the rollout. And was seemingly a factor in their concerns about the predictability of the guarantee. Our role as a trade association is to provide our credit unions with facts and information so they can make their own informed decisions. Again, we thank the bill sponsor for both the original program and this follow-up bill, and we thank the committee for the opportunity to share perspective. Maine's credit unions remains committed to supporting government employees, especially during shutdowns, and stand ready to be a resource to you as you consider this bill. Thank you for your time and opportunity, and I welcome any questions, which I assume you may have some.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Questions from committee members? Representative Olson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, we keep hearing the theme about the underwriting and whatnot. But in the underwriting, who are they investigating? Because the actual guarantee, the backup guarantee is through FAME. So are they looking at the creditworthiness of the individual or the creditworthiness of FAME?
What I was referring to there would be for their own programs like they're able to do right now, their own underwriting. So it would be the individual, not FAME, as I understand that question.
But are they taking into account the fact that it's further guaranteed by FAME?
If they were going to opt into the program, certainly. But as I mentioned, and I think Representative Matheson touched on in her testimony, that there was some confusion with the language about the backstop, and not necessarily that it was right or wrong. I just think that it was so complicated that may have been lost in translation to some of our credit unions. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question. Thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you
Awesome.
very much.
Thank you all.
Anyone else wishing to testify neither for nor against?
Good afternoon, members of the committee, Senator Bailey, Representative Matheson. I'm Josh Stearman with the Maine Bankers Association. We're the trade group representing 30-plus banks operating across the state of Maine. I did not prepare a written testimony for you here today. Our position is neither for nor against. We enthusiastically supported this program when it was introduced, I believe, last year. I was very heartened to hear the success story of the first speaker about the good experience with a local bank. I simply want to make myself available for any questions or take back information you may have for the work session.
Great, thank you. Questions from committee members? Representative Clucci.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know this isn't directly related to the bill, but did you get a sense from some of your members if they were interested in trying to create a program like this moving forward?
There's definitely interest. There's absolutely is interest. And I heard a lot of anecdotal stories from banks working with customers that were impacted by the shutdown. But most of those anecdotes ended up in accommodations or things that could be done to help the customer that were outside of this program. So this was a very helpful tool. But it was just one of many options. And I heard of many instances where other solutions were found, whether that be allowing a handful of skip mortgage payments or a personal loan outside the parameters of this program, or perhaps it was using this program. So I think the answer is there's interest, but it doesn't have to be confined to this.
Yep.
And follow up, is there please let us know if there are things that you think that the committee can do to be helpful to encourage participation.
Certainly.
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Others wishing to testify in any capacity on this bill? Any requests from committee members for the work session from Colleen? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing on LD 2102. And do we have Senator Rennie? Yes. Oh, she's out there. Okay, so I'm going to open the work session on LD 2151 and act to improve access to affordable prescription drugs in underserved areas. Ooh. I'm getting all kinds of former members today.
Offering. We can start. There you go. I can't do sugar. There's some almonds in there.
I'll come back for it. I'll come back for it.
I know, that's what I was just thinking. I'm like, I want the basket.
Everybody ready? Yeah? Okay.
Hello, Senator Bailey, esteemed members of the Committee on Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services. I'm Cameron Rennie. I serve as a senator for District 13, which is all of Lincoln County and the towns of, almost all of Lincoln County and the towns of Washington and Windsor. I'm here today to present LD 2151, an act to improve affordable prescription drugs in underserved areas. And I gave my testimony to Edna earlier, so I think perfect. So it is an unfortunate reality that many Mainers suffer from a shortage of access to affordable medications. Over the past several years, Maine has seen a steep decline in the number of retail pharmacies, particularly in rural counties. Many pharmacies have closed their doors altogether, while others have reduced hours due to workforce shortages and financial pressures, leaving many Mainers struggling to access pharmacy services in their communities. In most Maine counties, more than 50% of residents now live in a pharmacy desert. In Washington and Waldo counties, that number is 100%. This lack of access poses a real and immediate threat to public health. When Mainers cannot fill their prescriptions locally, especially for chronic and life-threatening conditions, their health outcomes worsen, emergency visits increase, and preventable hospitalizations rise. LD 2151 addresses the critical shortage of access to affordable medications that Mainers are facing, particularly in rural and underserved communities that are served by federally qualified health centers, or FQHCs. Maine's FQHCs, also known as community health centers, provide a high-quality, accessible primary and preventative care to more than 200,000 Mainers across more than 100 service delivery sites statewide. Together, these FQHCs form the largest independent primary care network in Maine and serve as the backbone of the healthcare safety net. So this bill provides a focused and fiscally responsible solution. The bill would allocate one-time funding, $4 million, to establish a grant program administered by the Department of Health and Human Services. Under this program, Maine's community health centers would apply for funding to develop or expand in-house pharmacy capacity, a proven way to ensure patients can obtain affordable medications directly where they receive their care. Because it costs roughly $750,000 to stand up one in-house pharmacy, this funding level would allow for the creation or expansion of several strategically located pharmacies across the state. Additionally, some health centers may look at mobile pharmacies or other options to increase pharmacy access in their area in a way that works best for the community they serve. So DHHS would evaluate each application to ensure that resources are allocated in an efficient and impactful manner. This legislation meets the emergency threshold. The continued loss of pharmacy access represents an immediate danger to the public health in Maine's rural and underserved areas. And without timely intervention, more residents will lose access to life-saving medications, deepening existing health disparities and straining the broader healthcare system, which, as we all know, is already under strain. So LD 2151 is a practical, very bipartisan, urgently needed investment in Maine's rural health infrastructure. It empowers trusted local providers, our community health centers, to fill the gaps left by the market and ensure that all Mainers, regardless of where they live, can obtain the medications they depend on. Thank you for your time. I'm done.
Right. Thank you. Questions from committee members? Representative Boyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator. What is a pharmacy desert? Like, how does that mean there's not a pharmacy within a certain mileage or?
That is my understanding, yes. And I bet that somebody behind me has a more definitive definition.
Awesome.
That they will share.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Further questions? Representative Arford.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you for this bill. I really appreciate it. I'm trying to jog my memory because it seems like.
Does it look familiar?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you're aware of bills that try to attempt to tackle the same issue of these pharmacy deserts, lack of affordable medication. I know that we've considered them, and my memory is failing me right now in terms of knowing what
I can
has
jog your
happened.
memory.
Yeah, okay. Well, I was hoping you
This
would.
might look familiar because we've definitely already passed this before. This was I believe unanimous and under the hammer last session. Probably both. And it was signed into law by the governor, and we failed to get it the funding that it needed, the one-time funding it needed. So this is something that is well supported and agreed upon that we need. So that's probably why it looks familiar.
So can I, quick follow-up?
Yeah.
So if the funding is the issue and the 4 million, is this a lesser amount than the original funding bill that was not funded? Or is there new information that might allow, I mean, potentially the need has increased, potentially even
Yes.
dramatically. And is that the idea that at this point in time, it's more likely to get the funding it needs?
My understanding is that the need is in fact more urgent and more critical now, and I believe that the funding is slightly different. There is not, in this bill, there is not the addition of a couple positions as well to run the program in DHHS.
Thank you.
Representative Clucci.
So could you just refresh my memory? Because if I was thinking that we actually had passed it, we did fund it, and then in the governor's proposed budget, it was repealed for this year. So from last year, because it was funded in, I think, as part of the 131st legislature.
You're right. It was a rescission of funding in early 2025.
Okay, and then if I also just, if you can remember, I'm wondering, I think if it was maybe 7.5 million or 9, or was
I think it was always
was it
4.
always 4? Okay,
Yeah.
okay, thanks.
Further questions? Representative Matheson.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this back, Senator. Is there any association with the RHT funding that could help with this?
I would love for that question to go somewhere behind me. It was something that I have brought up to people, but I do not have all the details on it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Representative Chimino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What role does mail order play in these areas? Because I know a lot of people order their prescriptions through mail order. So why could mail order not be filling these needs in these areas?
That's an excellent question. If if I were answering just based on my own life, I would say sometimes you're prescribed something that needs to be started right away, which is an important factor. And additionally, I don't know about you all's post office, but mine, the hours can be quite challenging to get to make sure that I can even get my own medications for myself or my family. So I think those could be a couple reasons, and maybe there, once again, hopefully people behind me are taking note to give more robust answers.
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other co-sponsors of this bill wishing to testify?
Representative Ducharme was here and he had to step out for a meeting.
Okay, so he might be back.
He might be back.
And I've heard the Senate President may want to testify too, so she might show up. But in the meantime, anyone else in the room wishing to testify in favor? Welcome.
Here we go.
Good afternoon, Senator Bailey, Representative Mathiasen, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on, I'd like to just say HCIFS, because I know you guys have sat here for a long time already. I am going to circulate my testimony, but I'll try my best to answer some of the questions that just came up. You guys did unanimously pass, and we are very grateful for that, this bill back in 2024. It was funded, and then without a lot of notice, the funding was rescinded. That's why we're back at this with you guys. And I will say this question came up about whether or not there's more need. And I will say yes, the closures continue, but I would also mention in conversations with the health centers recently, they've also said it's not only total closures that are becoming an issue, it's where there are pharmacies in communities and then there are suddenly temporary closures or someone makes an appointment to go pick up their stuff at 1 p.m. and lo and behold, the pharmacy is closed. So that's an access issue, and it is seeming to get worse over the last few months. And just a high-level note that this funding is meant as a one-time infusion for the FQHCs to really think about ways that they can expand pharmacy access. So that could look like potentially starting their own pharmacy at a health center, or expanding their pharmacy team, or something in that general range. The health centers have many different ideas, but a lot of them are very interested in actually having on-site pharmacies that can be fully staffed and more reliable, because that's already a point of access and entry for their patients and the populations and the communities they serve. So our strong sense is this remains a very, very good investment, and we really appreciated your first round of support and hope that you will consider this again. And I am more than happy to answer questions.
Representative Matheson.
I'm going to ask the same question of everybody. Since Maine got $190 million from the RHT funding, which seems to be a one-time funding, this seems to fit right in there. Is this something that has been discussed about?
We have not discussed this directly with the department. In the conversations we've had with DHHS, I will say that there seems to be some pretty significant parameters around the use of those funds, things like workforce, health information technology. Access is in there, so that it could be that there are some conversations, additional conversations to be had, but that has not come up or seemed like an obvious thing yet. So that's something we can certainly follow up on.
Further questions? Representative Morris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Why the funding was rescinded?
I think that's a great question to actually direct toward the administration. We did not really get any answer on that.
Yeah, just to add, I do seem to remember, this committee, it was in the budget to be rescinded, and this committee was pretty emphatic to put it back in, if I remember correctly. So again, as far as this committee was concerned, we made the recommendation to AFA to not rescind that money.
Right.
Further questions? It's coming back to me now. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Oh, did you?
Oh, Representative Arfrey.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank
Sure.
you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your testimony. I just want to follow up on the idea of the mail order pharmacies. Just from your perspective, how effective are they at filling the need that is growing in our rural areas for access to losing access to pharmacies and replacing that with mail order?
I think it's one option, and I do know that there's a health center here that can probably speak very precisely to some of the limitations of mail order. But I think because the desert and the experience of lack of access is so broad and wide in this state, I think we're going to have to use as many tools as possible. And so that would be one, but there are others, including direct access when you're at a primary care office and you want to move from getting that prescription to walking down the hallway to getting it to make sure that you're going to remain healthy.
So am I correct in characterizing the situation? It's really not an and or, it's really an and then add on to that to really continue to meet the need.
Yep, I think that's accurate. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Further
Thank you.
questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. I see there is a co-sponsor, the Senate President. Please come forward. Welcome back.
Thank you. Hello again. Still good afternoon. Still Senator Bailey and Representative Matheson and esteemed members of the Joint Standing Committee, Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services. I still serve as the president of the Maine Senate, and I still represent Senate District 23 with these amazing towns. And I am honored to testify in favor of LD 2151, an act to improve access to affordable prescription drugs in underserved areas. Access to prescription medication can be the difference between stability and crisis, between managing a health condition and ending up in an emergency room. For many Mainers, medication is not optional and is essential to their ability to work, care for their families, and live. For the more than 200,000 Mainers, roughly 1 in 6 who rely on federally qualified healthcare centers for their primary care, timely access to medication is an essential part of healthcare, not an amenity. When access is delayed or denied, the consequences can be immediate and dire. Maine's federally qualified health centers are reaching their breaking point in access to critical medications, while FQHCs make up the largest independent primary care network in the state. They do not generally have the capacity to provide pharmacy services as well. And so they rely on retail pharmacies to supply their patients with necessary medications. That reliance has become increasingly untenable as Maine continues to see pharmacy closures and reduced pharmacy hours driven by workforce and economic pressures. In my own Cumberland County, 1 in 4 residents live in a pharmacy desert, according to GoodRx. And Cumberland is the least impacted county in the state. In counties like Androscoggin and Aroostook, Hancock and Somerset, more than half of the residents live in pharmacy deserts, while Oxford and Washington counties have no adequate pharmacy access at all. For many rural Mainers, a pharmacy desert means traveling more than 10 miles to reach a pharmacy, assuming they have reliable transportation. In urban areas, it can mean no pharmacy within walking distance for low-income residents. These barriers delay care, reduce medication adherence, and ultimately worsen health outcomes. This bill would allow FQHCs to develop or expand in-house pharmacy services by hiring pharmacy staff and investing in automated pharmacy systems. This strengthens coordination within a patient's care team, and it also ensures that patients with acute needs, such as ear infections, strep throat, or other time-sensitive conditions, can access medication quickly. This committee has unanimously passed legislation nearly identical to this in 2024, identifying it as one of your top priorities. And it was later included in the supplemental budget signed into law by the governor. Unfortunately, the funding was rescinded, even as the underlying need for intensified following a wave of pharmacy closures across the state. We're at a crisis point, and without immediate support, FQHCs will continue to struggle to meet a basic component of care for the patients who rely on them most. LD 2151 is a proven bipartisan solution that directly addresses this growing access gap. I will just take a split second to say off script, I do want to use every time I'm before you all to talk about any of these matters, to just sort of throw, and I know you hear this from many folks, but as someone who is the granddaughter of a pharmacist, who has best friends who are pharmacists, the other part that's missing in this puzzle is supporting Mainers who want to go into this field, and to urge this committee to look for all opportunities to not only train pharmacists, but keep pharmacists employed in Maine. So whilst this is just a beginning step, you will hear with other bills, anytime I'm talking about pharmacy in here, I feel like somewhere my friend Emmy would give me grief if I didn't mention that it is very, very hard, and we do not have enough pharmacists to fill any type of pharmacy that we have a need of here in Maine. So with that soapbox, I would urge this committee to strongly support this bill so that access to medication in Maine does not depend on geography, income, or luck, but on a healthcare system that strives to work for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from committee members? Representative Chimino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. My
evening,
question, I guess it is. My question is, I'm surprised to hear that a pharmacy desert is 10 miles. Most of us drive to work and it takes us, we go further than 10 miles to come to Augusta. We go further than 10 miles. So I'm wondering, to me, 4 million sounds like an awful lot of money because people don't have a pharmacy within 10 miles.
So 10 miles is considered typically like the minimum of what's considered a distance. And one of the things when I've looked at a lot of our rural healthcare issues is you're right, 10 miles is just a tiny bit. That's when it starts to be considered, like if you have to drive further than 10 miles. For a lot of Mainers in our state, as you know, not even, getting here to the capital, but getting to a pharmacy. I spoke to a friend who lives in Washington County. For her to be able to get her prescriptions from where she lives, she's driving in an hour and a half. It's a lot more than 10 miles. So, whilst 10 miles might be considered sort of a starting if you have to go further than that, you're looking at a desert. We're talking about the average is much, much higher for the distance traveled. And we can try to get that for the work session as well. But you're absolutely right. Most of us are having to drive much further, whether it's pharmacy, grocery store, fill in the blank.
Further questions? Representative Arford.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being here with us today. I'm really curious about what happened to the funding, and if there's any, last go around, and if there's anything we can do, add to this bill, or just anything to prevent that from happening again, or is it already based on your knowledge of what happened, it's very unlikely that that would happen again?
I sadly do not have a crystal ball. I feel like it would make all of our jobs a lot easier in every committee if we did. But I think the biggest thing is for you all to continue to press how critical this is for all parts of Maine, whether it's, Washington, Aroostook, or Cumberland County. And, for all of us, as your presiding officer on the Senate side, I remain committed to try to fight for this funding and keep an eye out for it as well. So, yeah.
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else in the room wishing to testify in favor of this bill?
Good afternoon, Senator Bailey, Representative Matheson, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services. My name is Colleen Elias. I'm the CEO of Community Clinical Services. We are one of Maine's 20 FQHCs in the state, also known as community health centers. Our health center has service sites in Lewiston, Maine. I didn't hear Androscoggin County mentioned, but we also have pharmacy deserts, and I'll speak to that. We provide care, both primary care, integrated mental health services, and care coordination to over 8,000 patients a year. Our B Street Health Center location is positioned in Maine's top census tracts for poverty in the whole state. We strongly support LD 2151 and thank Senator Rennie for and co-sponsors for reintroducing this critical legislation to much needed support for FQHCs and to strengthen access to and expansion of pharmacy services across the state. Today, I am here to speak for the voice of the voiceless, the patients that can't be here to give testimony on this themselves. Also for our providers, the key points that I want to drive home are how this bill directly improves access, affordability, reduced cost, improved outcomes, which is critical, as well as improved provider retention and work-life balance. Many of our patients live in what is described as a pharmacy desert. That is 10 miles for rural and more than a half a mile for urban people that live in urban areas. More than 50% of our patient population lives in an area where they do not have a vehicle. So because our patients don't have a vehicle, they have to walk. And when we have severe Maine winters, or if you have a mom with a newborn, or if you have an elderly person with a leg ulcer, and their only option is to drive or walk to a pharmacy, that's not realistic. For some, picking up a prescription means walking long distances, coordinating multiple bus transfers, or choosing between groceries and a rideshare. A prescription is not helpful to a patient if they cannot physically get to the medication and take that. Mail order pharmacies are often suggested as a solution, but for our patients, they do not bridge the gap. A mail order does not help a child with an acute ear infection who needs antibiotics started today. A patient that is discharged from the hospital who needs blood pressure medication tonight so they don't go back to the ED. Someone in a mental health crisis who cannot safely wait days for a medication adjustment. A patient whose medication was changed during a visit and needs immediate counseling and follow-up. Also, mail order pharmacy is not available for people with substance use disorder or for certain medications that require refrigeration and stable shelf life. That includes a lot of medications for diabetes. This challenge is compounded by the reality that pharmacology is extremely complex. There are hundreds of distinct medication classes and thousands of individual drug types delivered through dozens of types of ways to take that medication, all which increase the complexity for that patient to understand how to take that medication, which falls back to the primary care providers who are already in a position where they are burned out for other reasons. This is why co-located pharmacy services within a community health center is not only the smart thing to do, it's fully transformative. When patients can receive their medication in one place where they receive their primary care, medication adherence improves, medication safety improves, patient understanding improves, and then outcomes improve as a result. When a pharmacist is embedded on site, patients can ask questions to that pharmacist in real time. A provider can walk that patient down the hall and say, let me introduce you to our pharmacist. Confusion is addressed immediately, dangerous errors are prevented, language barriers are navigated, and trust is built. This helps improve.
If you could finish.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
The result is more efficient, better care, and more access. And importantly, this does help reduce costs because we know that if a patient can access the medication they need for their diabetes or hypertension, that prevents avoidable ED visits where their situation becomes exasperated. It's better to treat diabetes before they need a leg amputation. So these are some of the reasons, and I'd be happy to answer some of the questions that got brought up.
Okay, thank you. Questions, Representative Chimino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here. First of all, they do ship insulin mail order. My daughter's diabetic. They do cold packs. They do special packaging. So they are shipping insulin. Just so you're aware of that. When you said that when children go to the FQHCs,
Yep.
If they have an ear infection, they have to be able to get medication.
Yep.
Typically, I know in hospitals that there's access to that medication. There are samples. Doctors will usually administer something if they know that the patient cannot afford or cannot get that right away. So I'm wondering if the QHCs actually are able to do that in emergency situations.
We do keep limited samples on site just for those emergency situations, but we can't have a full spectrum of medications, and we're not allowed to do medication compounds. So if a medication needs to be compounded down to a liquid form for a child, we cannot do that. We're not licensed to do that.
Do you have any idea, do you know if anything's been done as far as studying how much it would cost to be able to put a pharmacy in an FQHC?
Yes, we actually did a pro forma in hopes of this bill passing. And for us, it was going to cost about $550,000 to start up because of licensing, build out, and hiring a pharmacist.
Okay.
And that was 2 years ago. Thank you.
I think we have one more question.
Oh, sorry.
Representative Olson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I mean, we keep talking about the pharmacy desert. This bill really, if you located the pharmacy in the FQHC, they'd still technically be in the desert because most people are going to live more than 10 miles away from the FQHC. So, to tie it and say that this is going to solve the desert problem, doesn't solve the desert problem. It just, it increases and avails people of access. Wouldn't that be correct?
So federally qualified health centers, so there's 20 in the whole state. Maine is a huge state. And the only reason we can become a health center is through a process that includes stating that there is an underserved population or underserved need. There's an unmet need, and that's why we became an FQHC. And so access isn't only distance, it's whether they can afford to drive that at least 20 miles in their car. It includes access. So say somebody works nights and they need to sleep during the day. So there's more things that go into it than just the distance.
No, that I understand. And I don't have big objections here. Just when you tie it and say it's, it's going to help solve the pharmacy desert. No, it's not. The desert's still going to exist. You have increased, you've helped them out, but under the definition you've given, they're still in the desert.
Not in our health center region. So there is not a pharmacy within a half a mile of our health center. So if somebody does need a medication and say it's a single mom with a newborn and she has to walk with that baby, that is more than a half a mile to get to the pharmacy.
But I'm thinking more in the rural areas and things like that, because if your FQHC is located in the center of town and someone lives 20 miles away, you've certainly helped them out by doing that, but they're still in the desert.
I think it doesn't do everything perfectly. It's a one-time $4 million investment to help improve. So adding 10 pharmacies is better than adding no pharmacies, I think.
Good. Representative Mashraki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my understanding of this is that if someone has to take off work to go to the doctor, to the FHQC, FQHC, and they can get their meds while they're there, you have saved them from having to search that out.
Right.
I mean, I can remember when my kids were little in the 80s, when I went to the pediatrician, I often was able to get, at that point, I left with antibiotic if they needed it. I left with the meds because that was the way, that was the model that was being used then, and it's changed over time. And I cannot tell you how helpful that was to me as a mom with two kids that were 2 and under and having no drive-throughs like they do now, all the issues that, just imagine a different world. And I'll tell you, that was one of the most helpful things, because that was one of the few things that we could do without getting out of the car.
Yeah.
We were already there. And so I guess I see the value to this. I worked in a health center in Boston that actually did that in the 70s. So it's like not a unthought, it is part of the whole continuum, isn't it, of what you're trying to do in a FQHC?
Correct. It's whole person care. It's more equitable and accessible. And a lot of times patients will make that journey, right? Whether in their car or that walk, they get to the pharmacy only to find out it's closed unexpectedly or that their medication isn't ready. So then they have to walk back, call the health center, walk back again when it is ready. That happens to all of us. So it helps reduce that kind of back and forth, and the provider can have that integrated care model with a pharmacist on site, which really improves outcomes as well. The pharmacist is a medication expert more than our providers are.
Representative Chimino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, I'm concerned about the funding. So it was put in for $4 million, and you said there's 20 FQHCs. And if you were doing all of those at $550,000, it comes out to 11 million. So how are you going to choose where that 4 million goes? What FQHCs get it? And is the goal to eventually have all 20 FQHCs to have these pharmacies?
Good question. So not all, so some of the health centers already do have pharmacies on site, and so they would not apply. So it'd be a grant process. So just like any other grant, the most competitive grant would get funded. We'd have to state, what our budget is and what we plan to do with the funding, and then the state would decide how to disperse those funds. And there was a question about Rural Health Transformation Program funding and how that ties in. That is a federal program, very separate from this, and only 10% of that funding can be used for direct provider payments. And it's a reimbursement model. It's not a investment upfront. Health centers do not have the capital margins to spend money on adding a pharmacy and then getting reimbursed for it. So, and it wasn't written into the state's plan that was submitted to CMS. Thank you.
Further questions? All right, I think you can leave this time. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify in favor?
Good afternoon, Senator Bailey, Representative Matheson, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services. My name is Jacob Raw, and I am a third-year internal medicine resident physician here in Maine. I am submitting this testimony in support of LD 2151, an act to improve access to affordable prescription prescription drugs in underserved areas on behalf of the Maine Medical Association and the Maine Osteopathic Association. I'll speak a little bit to my experience with FQHCs. As an undergraduate student, I actually volunteered at an FQHC that had a pharmacy. Then, as a medical student, I actually got to work at an FQHC here in Sanford, Maine, that did not, at the time, have a pharmacy. And now, as an active resident physician that does primary care, I am all the more intimately aware of the numerous hurdles that patients have to jump through in order to get medications in hand. I have called pharmacies myself, wondering if they'll be able to get these medications, whether they're available, what their hours are, and often worry about time-sensitive medications that do make a difference, whether it's taken today or tomorrow. As a physician on the inpatient side, inside the hospital, I do make it a priority to consider whether a patient's primary care provider will be able to follow up the access to medications that I start in the hospital, particularly when this is compounded with issues of transportation and cost. Unfortunately, I have met many a patient who were hospitalized or even rehospitalized due to inadequate access to medications. So the MMA and the MOA have determined that we determined to testify in support of LD 2151 for numerous reasons. First, critical life-saving medications are inaccessible due to resource limitations, and pharmacies need to be open for patients to receive medications. FQHCs have certainly encountered their several numerous hits in the last few years, including declining hours, workforce, and an overall decrease in the number of local retail pharmacies that have supplemented the system. And these reductions create an availability deficit for Mainers who already struggle with finding primary and preventative medicine, as well as other necessary health services. Second, the shortage of access creates an even greater burden on some of our most vulnerable populations. A limitation on the hours a pharmacy is available strains working Mainers in pharmacy deserts. Although pharmacies seem to be around the corner for most in larger cities and open around the clock, Mainers sometimes live miles from their nearest pharmacy and have to leave work early in order to make it to their pharmacy and fill their prescriptions. Third, expanding pharmacy services incentivizes healthcare workers in that space to stay in those underserved areas. Two reasons cited in the industry for reasons to transfer or leave are a lack of incentives and a lack of certainty in the future revenue streams. This bill could serve as a much-needed boost to these workers in underfunded areas, as well as provide some assurance to those who work in FQHCs. Thank you for considering the views of Maine's physicians, and we hope you will support LD 2151. I'll take any questions.
Thank you. 3 minutes on the dot. You're getting so good. You've done this a few times.
This is actually my first time.
Well, you perfect. Questions from committee members? Seeing none, thank you very much. Others wishing to testify in favor of this bill? Welcome.
Thank you. If I don't sign in now, I know I'll forget. Good afternoon, Senator Bailey, Representative Matheson, and esteemed members of the Joint Standing Committee on Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services. My name is Marge Kilkelly, and I'm here today on behalf of Legal Services for Maine Elders. LSE provides free legal help for Mainers age 60 and older when their basic human needs are at stake. We serve older Mainers all across the state, and our clients are generally low income, some with medically complex conditions. I'm speaking today in strong support of LD 2151. Access to health care is like a three-legged stool. You need primary care, you sometimes need inpatient care, and you need pharmacy services. When one leg is missing, the value of the other two is compromised. The situation facing many older rural Mainers is dire. According to a Gorham Foundation data brief in January of 2025, there are approximately Mainers over 60 who do not hold a driver's license, and over 40,000 households lack access to a reliable vehicle. These people need to depend on family or friends to get to appointments. Rural non-drivers make significantly fewer trips for essential services because they don't want to be a bother or have someone else take time off from work to go with them to an appointment or pick up a prescription. This is particularly challenging for prescriptions. Half the population over 65 takes 4 or more prescriptions, and 90% take at least one. A trip to primary care and then an additional 20 miles to the pharmacy, usually to wait, is quite a challenge and costly. Combining the two improves access and health outcomes. When older adults cannot access prescriptions, it leads to dangerous medication non-adherence, resulting in worsening chronic conditions, increased hospitalization, higher medical costs, and increased mortality. The Impact of Pharmacy Deserts report in April of 24 noted difficult access, such as longer travel time or distance, may contribute to a patient's non-adherence, leading to poor health outcomes and increased medical care costs from increased hospitalization or emergency department visits. Non-adherence is one of the main sources of healthcare system waste in the U.S., with about $100 billion a year spent on avoidable hospitalizations and $290 billion per year in avoidable expenses overall. LD 2151 is a creative solution to a very complex issue of rural pharmacy access. It requests a $4 million one-time investment, and those funds have not only a direct multiplier, but also the future benefit of reducing other healthcare costs because of medication non-adherence. We urge you to move this bill forward.
Thank you. Questions from committee members?
Regarding the question about the distance and pharmacy deserts, one of the things that I found a couple of days ago was a study from Yale. And what they did was to look at census tracts. And in those census tracts, they looked at not just distance, but travel time and public transportation, and created a formula to look at that. And I know in a lot of my work, I've often told people a mile is not a mile in a Maine winter. And so, it may be, well, it's only 5 miles or whatever. It's like, well, today that's not so easy. The other, in that study, they also
Excuse
found,
me.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that.
Okay,
Did members have questions? Go right ahead and finish this.
In that study, they also found that nationally, 17.7% of people live in a pharmacy desert, but in South Dakota, New Hampshire, West Virginia, Maine, and Vermont, it's 25%.
Thank you very much. Seeing no questions, thank you
Thank
for
you.
your time. Are there additional people in the room that would like to testify in favor of this bill? Thank you.
Senator Bailey, an abstention, Representative Matheson, and members of the committee. My name is Benjamin Coolidge Gagnon. I'm with Sarah Public Affairs here on behalf of Penobscot Community Healthcare. I'm here reading Christopher Raven's testimony. He could not be here today, so I'm going to give it my best shot. PCHC is Maine's largest federally qualified health center, serving about 55,000 patients with locations in Penobscot, Waldo, and Somerset counties. We provide high-quality integrated primary care, including mental health services, pediatrics, care management, and treatment for substance use disorder, all at 22 clinical service sites, regardless of the patient's ability to pay. We actually have 4 community pharmacies currently, and those 4 retail pharmacies are available both for patients and the general public as well. And I do know their FQHC in Bucksport just opened their own retail pharmacy as well. And they are also available to the general public. The 4 community pharmacies, we have a robust primary care pharmacy service, a longstanding pharmacy residency program with pharmacists working at the top of their licenses as an integral part of the primary care team. Our pharmacists play an important role in the management of chronic disease states, providing medication management, med reconciliation, assessment and reduction of polypharmacy, Hep C treatment, connection to HIV treatment, and prevention through access to PrEP and so much more. Pharmacists in many ways have become the link between our patients' ongoing chronic disease management and their use of and access to affordable medications. We strongly support LD 2151. Since the committee unanimously advanced this bill as a top priority in 2024, access to pharmacy services and affordable medication has worsened. Continued pharmacy closures have further limited access to care for Maine communities as we watch the number of retail pharmacies shrink and reduction in hours for those still in operation as a result of ongoing workforce shortages and sustainability challenges faced by many independent pharmacies. This has exacerbated the problem across the state. FQHCs are perfectly positioned to fill in these gaps. This bill would help fund the capital investments necessary to expand or build new pharmacy facilities. If PCHC were fortunate enough to secure grant funding under this bill, we would utilize these funds to develop a specialty pharmacy with mail order components, significantly expanding our ability to meet the complex medication needs of our patients. Establishing the service requires substantial upfront investment, about $630,000, including facility build-out, consultant expertise, courier and cold chain delivery infrastructure, advanced pharmacy technological systems, and other costs unique to specialty pharmacy operations. But the long-term benefits for our patients will be considerable. A PCHC operated specialty pharmacy would allow us to white bag medications directly to our clinics for timely administration, improve coordination of care by limiting frequent delays and communication challenges our patients face with large national specialty pharmacies, and ensure reliable delivery of essential therapies to patients living in rural and underserved areas. By bringing these services in-house, we can provide more seamless care, reduce barriers, and better support patients who depend on specialty medications for chronic conditions. Thank you so much for the time. Happy to try to answer questions as well as take any questions back to the pharmacy team at PCHC.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions from committee members? I just wanted to confirm, you had said that there were 4 community pharmacies that you currently have for the 55,000 patients that you serve. Is that, am I hearing
That's
that
correct.
correctly?
PCHC currently has 4 retail pharmacies within 4 of their practice sites. For example, their Brewer Medical Center has an in-house retail pharmacy, and both that can be used by patients, but it is also used by the general public as well. And those are 4 separate locations.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Is Representative Duchesne here? Oh, there he is. Come on forward.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Sorry I'm late,
I
but-
expect you to start singing the anthem.
If it'll make a difference, I will. I don't think so. I don't think so. Good afternoon, Senator Bailey, Representative Matheson, esteemed members of the Health Coverage Insurance and Financial Services Committee. I'm Jack Ducharme, and I proudly represent House District 71, the people of Madison, Norridgewock, and Cornville. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today in strong support of LD 2151, an act to improve access to affordable prescription drugs in underserved areas, a bipartisan bill that I'm pleased to co-sponsor. A serious challenge has grown acute across Maine in the last few years: the loss of access to local pharmacies and affordable medications. Throughout our state, retail pharmacies are closing or reducing hours due to workforce and financial pressures. Large chains are not located in or near every community, and in many rural towns, there is no longer a pharmacy at all. For many Mainers, this can mean driving long distances, waiting days for medications by mail, or simply going without. To give you a perspective of what long distances I'm talking about, Jackman is not in my district, but I served in Jackman for a number of years as a lender for Skowhegan Savings, so I'm well aware of the distances up there. Jackman, to go from Jackman to get a prescription is a minimum of a 50-mile trip. And if you can think about going 50 miles yesterday between Jackman and Greenville, it's pretty significant. They can come down to Skowhegan. They call it going downriver. That's 75 miles to come down to the Hannaford to get their prescriptions. Or they can wait days for it to get there by mail. I was listening to some reporting this morning, and there are people that are waiting 30 days to get mail coming from Bangor to Hamden or something like that. So stop and think about that with respect to prescriptions. I wouldn't like to do that. If we look at the Rangeley area is another area that is really a pharmacy desert. They're anywhere from 40 to 50 miles to get prescription drugs up there. That's why 2151 is so important. This bill establishes a grant program to support federally qualified health centers so they can develop or expand in-house pharmacy services and deliver affordable medications directly to their patients. My personal story with this is, for over 40 years, I've been a patient at a federally qualified health center, Health Reach Community Health Centers in Madison. I can attest to the fact that the health centers provide excellent primary care, and they are the backbone of our rural health care safety net. But today, even when patients see a provider at a health center, they may not be able to fill a prescription that's written for them very easily. By enabling FQHCs and others to provide pharmacy services where patients already receive care, we improve access, reduce delays, and strengthen care coordination. Importantly, this is not a new idea. This bipartisan legislation mirrors a bill that was unanimously approved by this committee in 2024 in the 131st. That bill was inserted into the 2024 supplemental budget. I know I'm on appropriations. It was signed into law by the governor in April of 2024. At the time, I was the chairman of the board of HealthReach. We had a whole team waiting for the rules to do this. HealthReach Community Health Centers has a health center in Eustis, one in Rangeley, some of the more rural areas. And we had a team ready to go because we have health centers in these areas that are pharmacy deserts. So we knew what the deal was. We knew how critical this was. Unfortunately, before the rules got made and the process got set up, before the program got rolled out, that funding was clawed back in early 2025 to be applied to some other emergent need. I can't tell you what that emergent need was. At this point, it doesn't really matter. It was $4 million and it wasn't being used. And somebody said, there's $4 million there. We're going to take it and put it over here. And I screamed bloody murder and appropriations. I said, we have people that are dying because they can't get their drugs and you're going to take that money and do this. Didn't matter. Pharmacy closures continued and the underlying need only intensified. The program is even more urgent now. HealthReach is just one FQHC that is ready to apply for the grant program in 2024 so that it could be put in place, to begin to put in place the mechanisms to provide pharmacy access in a part of our state that very much needs additional pharmacy access. LD 2121 is a practical targeted solution that builds on trusted community institutions and responds directly to a growing crisis. Further, this bill requests one-time funding. I'll say that again. One-time funding with no ongoing need. Once the grant program is finished, there'll be no further need for funding, unless, of course, the legislature decides it was successful and should continue with new funding. We'll cross that bridge down the road. I respectfully urge the committee to vote ought to pass on LD 2151 and help ensure that access to health care in Maine truly includes access to medications that make that care possible. Thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Yes, Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of questions, actually. If this goes through and sitting on appropriations, have you had any discussions with people in appropriations on whether they're going to run with that or not? That's question number one. Number two, where the group that you worked with has already seen, started down the path and whatnot. What was their timeline from approval till first prescriptions delivered?
The answer to the first question is there are at least two of us that are on appropriations that are sponsored this bill, Senator Rennie and myself. So there's 2 out of 13. I'm in hopes I could get the other 4 Republicans. It's up to Senator Rennie to get the other 7 Democrats. That's all I can tell you there. As far as the other part of your question, we don't know. The answer is we don't know. And the reason we don't know what that timeline would look like is because we don't know what the rules are going to be. It's the program gets passed. That from a process standpoint, the program gets passed. The governor signs it, it gets funded. The governor signs it. The money goes to HHS. In the prior iteration of this, HHS shuttled that money off to CDC and said, you do it. You make the rules. And we kept calling CDC saying, who's making the rules? Well, we're supposed to be making the rules, but we just haven't had time. And 6 months went by and 8 months went by and 9 months went by. And I know a bunch of us were kind of pulling our hair out going, where are the rules? And then the next thing we know, well, we think we're going to pull that money because we need the money. Wait a minute. You already put a program out there, told people you're going to have a program. As soon as we get the rules done, we're going to do this. Yeah, well, we didn't, so we're not. Oh, well, it's the way it goes. So until we see the rules, we don't know. But I can tell you this. I just finished being on the board of directors for Health Reach. Before I left, I said to the CEO, you still have the team ready. You still have the template ready of what you want to do. She goes, absolutely. I said, we've got another bill in. She said, get the bill in, get the rules, we'll get it done. And they will.
Representative Foley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for sponsoring this coming. So to avoid the problem again, would it be helpful for us to declare in this bill who's going to make the rules and give them a time frame?
Do we have timeframes in the bill? I don't remember. Excuse me? There's implementation date in the bill. I thought there was, but we didn't declare who was going to do it. But if you want, certainly the committee, if the committee wanted to get this done and wanted to put that in there, I certainly would think that our interest is getting it done.
Sorry, I was looking for that in the language. Representative Foley?
Yeah, I was gonna look through it. I can get it for the work session. Our interest is getting it done too. So I think we need to figure out how maybe we move up the time frame. Maybe we declare who has to do it and give them the authorization to do it and get it done. I mean, it seems to me as anything, the longer money hangs around, the scarcer it gets.
Get 2 thumbs up from me.
So the date in the language is no later than December 15th, 2026. Section 5 on the last page, implementation, just FYI for language. Additional
They get 6
questions?
months, basically.
Yep. Representative Flynn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Ducharme. Given your experience with Health Reach Board, and if this were to pass, what would it mean, let's say, in a metric dollar amount for your community out of the gate?
Well, the way we envision the grant program to be is, at least from a Health Reach perspective, from what I remember as being on the board, Health Reach has a facility that has the space that we can do this. There are certain things that we would need to do to make it pharmacy appropriate, I guess, from a security perspective and so forth. Those are the things that the FQHCs are going to need help with because they don't have money in their nonprofit or not-for-profit, whatever it is. So there's all of their money is tied up in patient care. So they don't have money setting aside for, capital improvements, infrastructure kind of things. So it's my understanding in the previous iteration of this, that what would happen is they would put together a package and say, here's our request for a grant. This is how much money we need. We need X amount of dollars to get this up and running. And as soon as we're up and running, we're done. You don't have to, all we're going to do is just take care of patients. So.
Representative Chimino?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Jack. So according to the figures, $4 million, 550,000 per, if it's all going to the FQHCs, 550,000, and that's based on 2 years ago for what the startup costs would be. So that's basically 7 FQHCs that would be getting money. Is there a specific, do we know which FQHCs are going to be getting the money? Are they good? The ones that are like in Rangeley, where there's an FQHC but no pharmacy at that FQHC?
What we have to do is we have to see the rules. The rules are going to drive who can apply, who, because they're going to make some rules that say you have to be this far away or whatever, so that we're not impeding on a retail pharmacy or something like that. But We have to see those rules first. So I don't think that I don't think that you can take the $4 million and say, well, we've got 5 FQHCs in the state and we're going to divide it up evenly like that. It's who has space, because some others may not have space. Conversely, Health Reach may have 3 facilities where they have space.
Well, that's my concern. If it's going to where the greatest need is, that
Mhm.
4 million, then that would be optimal. But how do we know that it's going to where the greatest needs are? And if you're saying wait for the rules, before I would commit $4 million, I would like to know exactly where that money is going.
I guess I would ask you the question, how do we get HHS or whoever's going to write the rules before we get the bill passed?
Additional question? Go right ahead.
Thank you. I don't know, maybe to have something more specific in the bill would be optimal. In other words, do the research and know where the money is going to go for these pharmacies. Because I think you can look at it and say Rangeley has an FQHC, but Rangeley does not have a pharmacy. Okay, that's 50 miles for them to have to travel somewhere else to be able to get. So to me, Rangeley would be included.
Mhm.
I think we need to be more specific in the bill instead of just leaving that $4 million out there and not knowing. I wouldn't want to see it go to a place where maybe it's, the desert's 10 miles when you've got a 50-mile desert up in Rangeley.
I'm with you. I'm with you. If you put that language in the bill, I think me and the senator would probably concur on that.
Additional questions from committee members? Seeing none, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Are there more people in the room that would like to testify in favor of this bill? Is there anybody online? Edna? Thank you. We have Carter? Mr. Friend or Mrs. Friend?
Oh, I have one too. There you go.
Hi, everybody.
Hi there. We can see you and hear you. Thank
Great,
you.
thank you very
Welcome.
much. Senator Bailey, Representative Matheson, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services. I'm Carter Friend. I'm the CEO of York County Community Action. We are one of Maine's 20 community health centers, which we operate through Nassau Healthcare. York County Community Action is actually a unique organization. We are both a community action agency and a community health center. So as a community action agency, we implement programs and services that promote economic well-being and social well-being for individuals and families. And then as a community health center, we offer integrated comprehensive health care to support patients' complete health needs, including primary care, behavioral health care, and dental care. So we provide access to healthcare services for about 7,800 patients every year. We strongly support LD 2151 for all the reasons already stated, and I won't repeat any of those just in the interest of your time, but I did just want to mention one unique population that hasn't been brought up that we serve, which is that we are a healthcare for the homeless provider. And so we work to provide low access barrier to folks who are struggling with homelessness, individuals and families, and providing access to low access to prescription medication in the same fashion would dramatically improve our patients' care. So in 2024, we served over 1,500 patients that met the HRSA definition of homelessness. And that number has gone up steadily over the past several years, as you can imagine. And people who are homeless more frequently experience conditions such as HIV, bronchitis, pneumonia, malnutrition, diabetes, hypertension, and other issues, including substance use disorder and mental illness that frequently require prescription medications. This grant program would help us to serve those vulnerable patients better, reducing access to prescription medications so that folks who are homeless could fill their prescriptions when they're on site with their appointment and getting their prescriptions written. So for those reasons and the reasons that you've heard from other folks, we strongly support LD 2151.
Thank you, Mr. Friend. Do we have questions from committee members? Representative Mistracchio.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have a question, and I'm not going to make it into one. And I just want to welcome Carter. He is sitting in my district right now. How's the snow down there?
Thank you. It's good. Thank you.
Seeing none, thank you for your time, Mr. Friend.
Thank you very much.
Is Miss Endy available?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, Ms. Andy, we can, yep, now we can see you.
Wonderful. Thank you
Thanks.
so much. Senator Bailey, Representative Matheson, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services. Thank you for providing the opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this testimony in support of LD 2151. My name is Kate Endy, and I'm the Policy Director at Consumers for Affordable Healthcare. LD 2151 would provide support for federally qualified health centers to develop or expand their capacity to provide pharmacy services to patients. As you all know, Maine is an extremely rural state, and many Mainers are living in pharmacy deserts and must drive long distances to pick up prescriptions. Delayed access to needed medications can result in worsened health outcomes and may also result in people experiencing pain or discomfort unnecessarily for longer periods of time. Providing this financial support to FQHCs will help address the issues you've been hearing about today and will improve timely access to medically necessary medications for many people in Maine. And for those reasons, I hope you will support this bill. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'll just say that from what we've experienced on our helpline, while mail order pharmacies do help fill in crucial gaps and can be very convenient for people, they're certainly not a replacement for an in-person pharmacy for prescriptions people need more quickly. Not everybody has stable housing and so may not have a permanent mailing address, for example. So there's all sorts of reasons why somebody might prefer or need to pick up their prescriptions in person. But again, happy to answer any questions, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Andy. Are there questions from committee members? Seeing none, thank you for your time. Is there anybody in the room that would like to testify in opposition to 2151? Is there anybody in the room that would like to testify neither for nor against LD 2151? Is there anybody in the room that wants to speak at all around LD 2151? No? Does the committee want anything from Colleen for the work session? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing for 2151. I'll hand it over to the senator.
We will open the public hearing on LD 2074, an act to update the requirements for social worker licensure. Representative Mastracchio.
Good afternoon, Senator Bailey, Representative Matheson, and esteemed members of the Joint Standing Committee on Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services. I am Anne Marie Mastracchio, and I represent House District 142, which includes parts of Sanford and Springdale. Pleased to be here today as the sponsor of the Department of Professional and Financial Regulations Bill, LD 2074, an act to update the requirements for social worker licensure. This bill amends several provisions of the licensure qualifications for social workers in an effort to reduce barriers and streamline the licensure process. The bill expands the qualifying degrees for conditional licensure, streamlines the qualifications for licensure specific to the consultation and social work experience requirements, removes requirements for initial licensure that have created barriers to entering or re-entering the social work profession, clarifies the consultant eligibility, removes the two-tiered system for eligibility for DHHS social workers and non-DHHS social workers, and expands the board's authority to consider consultation and social work experience gained in this state or another jurisdiction when seeking either initial licensure, late renewal, or reinstatement of licensure. Thank you for your attention. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I really think you might want to wait until the representative from the department shares a little more information about the bill.
Thank you. Questions from committee members? Seeing
Thank
none,
you. Thank you.
very much.
That worked really well.
Ms. Valencourt, if you want to come up, please.
Hi, thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Senator Bailey, Representative Matheson, and members of the committee. My name is Penny Valencourt, and I am the OPOR Director responsible for 38 boards and programs, one of which is the Board of Social Worker Licensure. And thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony. There's a lot to this bill, so I want to make sure that I'm taking the appropriate time. I tend to go fast at the end of the day, so at any point, please slow me down. But this is, it's worthy for some good discussion on each component of the bill. As Representative Mastracchio did indicate that LD 2074 is necessary as a first step in modernizing the regulations governing the qualifications for initial and renewal of licensure for all levels of social worker licensure. Current requirements and licensure pathways are preventing individuals who are otherwise qualified to be social workers from obtaining Maine licensure. Over the past several legislative sessions, there have been several proposals to address shortages in behavioral health services. And this is a comprehensive bill that would level set the minimum requirements for licensure and conditions to practice, while at the same time ensuring public protection. What I might add is this bill really reflects the experiences of applicants, agencies, board staff, board administrative staff, and quite honestly, it goes back 20 years ago when I was managing the Board of Social Worker Licensure. There were some challenges, particularly with the conditional licensure category, and also the consultation requirements that would be necessary to ensure public protection both within a DHHS setting and outside of a DHHS setting. And I want to share with you some of the issues that have been coming forward to the board that will highlight the changes that we've at least identified for your consideration. So bear with me here. And if I have time to do this, I'd like to be able to do it. Within the Board of Social Worker Licensure, there are several different types of categories of licensure. So I'm going to break it down by what I would call sort of the entry level licensure, and that's known as the LSX, or the Licensed Social Worker Conditional License. Board staff, applicants, and facilities, behavioral health settings have noticed that there have been some delays in the application process with regards to qualifying individuals who don't have the necessary education by way of a bachelor's degree in either social work or social welfare. LSX individuals can qualify, but they have to demonstrate that they have a degree in a field that's sufficiently related. So the board by rule has adopted those list of degrees. And as you might imagine, over the intervening 20 plus years or so, the board has been faced with really evaluating degrees in an informal way in which they could expand that list. So throughout that process, there have been some inconsistencies in whether or not certain degrees could be included or excluded. And you may hear some testimony from others behind me who may share those challenges. What this bill will do is it will identify in statute the degrees that are sufficiently related. This bill proposes to take the existing rule, which identifies a list of degrees that are outlined in section 10 of the proposal, again, by keeping in place those degrees the board has identified by rule, but also adding a degree in counseling, a degree in criminal justice, and a degree in nursing, while all other degrees that are listed in this bill have been lifted out of the existing board rule. The board has seen an increased number of candidates bringing forward criminal justice degrees, nursing degrees, and counseling degrees, and those are the candidates who have a job offer, have consultation lined up, but are not able to obtain licensure because of this list is limited to those that I mentioned earlier. The other issue with regard to LSX licensees has to do with the employment requirements. At the time of initial application, an applicant must submit a form showing both evidence of social work employment and also identifying who that consultant will be upon employment. However, a common issue is that a candidate cannot submit the form as the employer wants the license before they can offer the job. So this is the same situation I may have testified about a pharmacy obtaining a license from the board without yet first having either a DEA or an FDA number. It's like a chicken and egg situation. This has been most frustrating for employers. And as you might imagine, especially those candidates who have to sit and wait 2 or 3 months for the board to determine whether or not their degree is eligible, they've since probably have lost that job. So this is an effort to streamline the employment requirements as well as the consultation requirements by simply removing the requirement from initial licensure, but to require it at the time of renewal. So that if an individual who has a qualifying degree can obtain the license, then they should be licensed without delay. But it would be the onus on them to make sure that they've got the employment and the consultation so that then when they renew in 2 years, they're able to demonstrate that I am on track to completing the consultation. So that's the concept here that this bill attempts to do, is eliminate what we think is an arching regulation that's unnecessary and is creating a barrier to employment. And again, as mentioned earlier, getting folks into the regulated field. I will say another component of this bill is specific to the consultation agreements. It's board staff's experience that a licensed social worker can change employment settings, and it's not uncommon for a social worker to go maybe start at the Department of Health and Human Services, go work for a private agency or a nonprofit agency, and perhaps come back to the Department of Health and Human Services. So their consultation is going to change based on that setting. So I'm going to use my words as a way to describe it as an algorithm. It is very challenging to go then over a 2 to 4 year period with an applicant to determine what were those consultation requirements as their supervisors may have come and gone, their employment may have changed, they may have worked part-time in one setting, part-time in another. This really level sets the consultation requirements regardless of setting and regardless of level of licensure at the bachelor level. The other item I wanted to bring to your attention is under current regulations. If you do not hold an active LSX license, you are not eligible for the next level of license, which is known as the LSW. That is the fully licensed bachelor level license. Right now, it is preventing, again, otherwise qualified individuals who, let's say, maybe after the first year of being in the field said, I need to pause either to raise children or I'm going to go do something different. But they have to, when they come back, they have to restart those hours, restart the employment hours, the consultation. And for some individuals, they may have been right at that 4th year and meeting all the requirements and leave the field. But upon re-entering the field, they have to start all over and redo 2 to 4 years. So the board staff find that that is an unnecessary barrier. This bill will allow the board to consider consultation earned in a prior life that is consistent and substantially equivalent to bring those hours forward. So it won't delay someone who is seeking that LSW or next level of licensure. So that again is sort of an overarching goal of this bill. With regard to the next category of licensure known as LSW or licensed social worker, there are two pathways for LSW licensure. One, as I just mentioned, which is that conditional. You gain the employment, you gain the consultation, and then you pass the examination, and then you are eligible to apply for the LSW. Once you obtain the LSW, you then have to restart another 2 to 4 years of consultation, which this bill isn't changing, but I just want to highlight that that's one pathway to this licensure. The second pathway to this licensure is someone who holds a bachelor's degree in social work or social welfare and has passed the examination. Even with those students who are coming out with a BSW are still faced with the same challenge of, I have to find the job and the consultant before I get the license. And in the employment field, the employer is looking for that license before they offer the job. So again, this sort of level sets, even at this level of licensure, that at initial licensure, show us your degree, show us your exam, and then it's on you to make sure you do the consultation and the employment hours for renewal of licensure 2 years later. So it's really moving that requirement and putting really the onus on the individual licensee to monitor those hours in employment, as opposed to board staff and the board. My experience directly is this is where the quagmire is. There is such a bottleneck because we are doing math and algorithms to make sure that within 2 to 4 years, they've done all the right numbers, they've done all the right setting, and the group setting is the right ratio. So again, this level sets it so that it is a requirement to do the consultation, but that they would demonstrate and attest to meeting it at the time of renewal. The next category of licensure is LMSW, and I am happy to report that not a lot of changes with that category. Again, that category is an individual with a master's degree who passes an examination. The only limitation with that is, let me double check on that, but I don't believe they can engage in private practice. But again, this is a category that we're not asking for a lot of changes. The next category of licensure is someone who has a master's degree in social work, but wants to obtain clinical hours to move towards the LCSW, which is the highest level of scope and practice under the Social Worker Licensure Act. Similar to the conditional experience I just explained at the bachelor level, many people are facing some hurdles at the LMSW conditional clinical level. And I mention that mostly because of, in order to get this license, again, you have to show proof of employment and you have to show proof of who the consultant is. And I think one of the experiences that we've had is removing that requirement from initial and requiring it at the time of renewal is better poised to get folks who, again, who are clearly qualified to enter the practice, and also at the same time ensure that they understand what those employment and social work consultation hours constitute. What is of interest, however, is that Maine appears, this is for another day, but I just want to share with you that this category of LMSWCC appears to be unique to the state of Maine. Most other states just allow an LMSW to do clinical work under their supervision. Maine just happens, we love licensing categories. So this just happened to be another separate licensing category that someone with a master's degree would have to obtain in order to do their clinical work. And then with that, depending on whether or not their degree was a generalist degree or a clinical concentration, they would have to do double the hours of consultation. So that requires the board's review and board staff's review to determine whether or not their transcript is either clinical concentration or a generalist. So again, I put that perhaps more as a footnote for further discussion, but we did not propose any changes to that requirement. The last category I'd like to highlight for you, again, as noted earlier, is this LCSW, and that's a licensed clinical social worker. That's the gem out of all this group, because they really do provide so much, not only the diagnosis and treatment that comes with their scope, but they also provide a significant role in that they provide a lot of supervision with certain agencies. This is also a category where board staff has encountered some challenges. I should have printed off all the emails that I've sent since June 1st of 2025, but there have been many. And many of them have come from LCSWs who used to be licensed in Maine, but cannot get relicensed because they would have to start over as an LMSW conditional clinical. And that hit me squarely. And so this is one of those issues where it is nonsensical. It just happens to be the requirement. And we want to make sure that the board has the ability, if this is a policy direction you want the board to go in, is to consider those hours already earned either from another state or within Maine, but to have someone start over after being in the social work field for maybe 30, 40 years, just doesn't sit well. So this proposal will allow the board to consider those hours and not require that someone be actively licensed as an LMSWCC to qualify for the LCSW category. The other change that is part of this proposal is in statute. It looks like maybe around 2013, there were some specific requirements at initial licensure requiring all licensed applicants to do DV training and some additional training at initial licensure, which is a little bit different than how other boards operate. So what we did was we maintained it as part of this bill as a requirement to renew. If there are content-specific requirements for a licensee to achieve, most of those are done as part of a continuing education requirement and not an initial licensure. This, again, is creating a huge pause for individuals, and it also creates criticism in the delays because board staff can't issue those licenses without first obtaining that documentation. So again, it moves this more consistent with how other professional boards consider content requirements through the continuing education and renewal process. Finally, again, I may be restating myself, but the consultation requirements as part of this proposal aren't intended to reduce the number of hours. Rather, it's intended to level set the requirements such that those who are eligible to be a consultant are the same regardless of setting. I've lived with these regulations, like I said, for about 20 years. So to me, it makes perfect sense. But standing here and speaking to you on a late afternoon may not make sense. So with that, I'll conclude my testimony, but I'm open to hear any questions you may have of me, or I'm sure others can perhaps clarify more with their experiences on the sort of the spirit of this bill.
Great. Thank you very much. Questions? Representative Boyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Penny. To be honest, this is incredibly confusing to me. Like, I need a flow chart. Like, I mean, I don't understand why there's so many different licenses. Is this typical in other states that there would be all these different licenses?
It's not typical. Some states don't even license at the bachelor level. They only license at the master level. So Maine appears to be licensing. Again, this isn't a criticism. It just happens to be what we do. So this is a first step, I think, to many steps that the Social Worker Licensure Practice Act needs some modernization. This is just one step. It's a big chunk to take that all on, in my opinion, without a robust stakeholder group to help inform me. But this was just my work with ASWB, my work with the board, my work with board staff, and drafting a department bill this summer. This was just to identify the barriers that we are experiencing and applicants are experiencing right now. But you are correct. There's a bigger, I think, policy discussion. And as I've said before, I'm working on a strategic plan and we want to prioritize which state statutes go first, but pharmacy, social work, behavioral health are right on top of the list.
Okay. For the work session, and maybe it'll make more sense to me if we do a work session at like 10 a.m., but this is really confusing to me right now. So maybe we could have like a flow chart or something to just make it easier for my brain.
Okay.
Thank you.
Further questions? So I just had a clarification. I understand moving the consultation requirement for renewal. That makes sense. I get that. I don't quite understand though, what happens if they go to renew and they haven't met those consultation requirements,
Then it would likely be a preliminary denial,
just for renewal. So.
right? If they haven't met the
Yeah.
requirements, if they haven't been doing the consultation, then they wouldn't be eligible to renew. They could go inactive. There are some other, if they're not actively engaged, but they want, or in the practice, they can go inactive and come back to the board when they're practicing to continue to earn those consultation hours, because it is a time, it's within 2 to 4 years, so it's
Oh,
not
okay.
forever, so it's time limited.
That's the point I missed. It's within 2 to 4 years. So there
Correct.
is a window. Thank you.
There is a window.
I get it now. Thank you. Representative Matheson.
I just remember going through all of these licenses for the last 4 years, and I know I have to refresh my memory. And I apologize, but could you just give me one example that takes me through what you mean by consultation hours for one of these licenses, just so that I don't understand what you're saying with that, and I apologize, but I have no idea what you mean by that.
It's supervision.
So this is supervisory. Once they've graduated, they're required to do a certain amount of hours. Now we're calling it consultation hours, not supervisory hours.
It's always been consultation.
Oh.
And again, that's
Okay.
unique perhaps to this profession,
is
but it is
Yep.
social work consultation. And, from a non-social worker, it's supervision. It's a supervisor who is going to provide the consultation. So those are the terms that are used intermingling as folks are finding a supervisor. It's their consultant for purposes of meeting the licensing requirements.
So in this bill, what it's trying to do, I'll give you an example. My daughter's getting her master's degree in social work right now. She'll need to come back and do 7,000 hours, right? Of consultation hours before she can practice. So I guess I'm confused. Are you giving a license during this time when they're doing the consultation hours? And then when they I mean, I don't know how that's different than what we were talking about last session about, I guess I'm confused. Have they've taken the test?
They've taken the test.
Okay, so they've taken the test, they've passed it. And now they have to do a certain amount of hours in addition to it after that.
Correct.
But they're licensed conditionally during this time until they renew it to a full license after they've done their consultation. So could you I'm sorry, I just don't know.
I think these are great questions. So let's take that example. Your daughter graduates with an MSW with a clinical concentration. So those hours off the top of my head are 96 individual hours concurrent with 3,200 social work hours. So that's the language that is used in statute and rule. Nothing's changing with the requirements. All we're simply saying as part of this bill is upon initial application, they have to show proof of employment and submit that consultation form. This is going to say, the applicant is going to say, I understand I have to be employed and I understand I need a consultant in order to practice, in order to meet my consultation in 2 to 4 to 6 years. So it's really just stopping it from being a barrier to get that license, to get to work immediately. What they are able to do with that category, LMSW conditional clinical, they can stay conditional clinical forever. There is no 2 to 4 year time frame. That is a little bit different than the LSW conditional. The LMSW CC or conditional can renew forever, so long as they're getting the consultation.
I think I understand.
I know, my apologies.
Further questions? Representative Arford.
Yeah, thank you very much. So it seems like with our medical professions, oftentimes one of the professional groups will be coming before us when we talk about making changes like this, either not in the board, but just in what's expected of them for their licensure and going forward. And I'm just curious as to the social workers at these different levels that are going through and experiencing these different things. Are they behind these changes? Have they been asking for them? Have they been saying this is too onerous? We need to make this more streamlined. You know, I'm not able to do the work I've been trained to do, and we desperately need people to do that type of thing.
The answer is yes. The constituents, the applicants, the employers have said this, they are frustrated with the delays. Board staff has identified the delays in part are because we need proof of employment, proof of all the training, proof of a consultation agreement, and then a review of the educational degree to see if it's equivalent. And sometimes staff doesn't have the ability to make those decisions and they have to wait for a full board to come in and review it. Sometimes the board doesn't have quorum, they don't meet. Now it's 2 and 3 months later. Sometimes the board will have a hearing, then it's 4 or 5 months later. That individual applicant has lost their job offer. And that's what's been happening for a number of years.
Does this solve that? This doesn't actually, this just makes it a little less likely that that type of an outcome will occur. It doesn't actually solve that problem though, or does it?
It sure does.
will.
We can
Okay.
issue that license within a day of getting the
Okay.
degree and the exam, issue the license, attest to meeting the consultation and work requirements, and off you go. But to upload all those requirements at the beginning is causing delays and people are losing their jobs and not able to practice in the field. We've heard that from employers, applicants, the board staff. Those are recurring themes.
One last question. Why was it designed like that in the beginning?
I think, again, I can't speak for the proponents of this, but the world was very different 20 plus years ago when the whole concept of conditional social workers at the bachelor level was being introduced. And my lens is that that level of regulation was likely very appropriate and necessary at that time. But we have since had some experiences. We don't have complaints that shows that these are, especially at the bachelor level, that they're off doing independent work. They cannot work independently. They're always employed by a healthcare provider or a nonprofit or DHHS. They can't practice independently, and their supervisor is someone at work. So from my perspective, this is an opportunity for the committee to say whether or not it's time to streamline those requirements, because this level of oversight just doesn't seem necessary.
Thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you very
Thank you.
much. Others in the room wishing to testify in favor of this bill? And I think we have some online. If they're still here, Edna, could you move Jamie over? Thank you. Oh, Jamie's not there.
Actually, these are neither for nor against though. So.
Yeah, so is Kets, well, on my list, I had Jamie and Ketsia in favor. Either of them are there.
Neither one there. So
Okay.
Not in favor.
All right, thank you. Then we'll move to those in opposition. Is there anyone in the room wishing to testify in opposition to this bill? Is there anyone in the room wishing to testify neither for nor against this bill? All right, so we do have some people online who signed up neither for nor against. I have Kara. Is she? Yeah, so if you want to move Kara over. Welcome.
Oh, welcome. Am I on? Hello, folks.
You are.
I
You
think the transition, I must have missed it. Well, good
Yeah.
afternoon, Senator Bailey, Representative Matheson, and distinguished members of the committee. My name is Kara Sanner. I'm the Director of Regulatory Services here at the Association of Social Work Boards. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today, neither for nor against LD 274. ASWB is a nonprofit organization formed in 1979 by state boards to provide the social work licensing exams. Today, ASWB represents 64 U.S. and Canadian jurisdictions. ASWB's mission is grounded in public protection and supporting safe, competent, and ethical practice. ASWB provides resources, services, and technical assistance to regulators, including comprehensive regulatory data to promote informed decision-making and consistency in law and practice, while respecting jurisdictional autonomy. LD 274 reflects careful work to modernize Maine's regulatory framework. It seeks to address workforce needs, improve clarity, and streamline administrative processes while maintaining key public protection standards. Importantly, the bill preserves Maine's examination requirements. Professional licensing exams remain the only uniform objective objective measure of entry-level competence. I would draw the committee's attention to my written testimony, which was submitted online. It offers additional information and context, which may be useful for the committee's work session. The information shared in my testimony centers on 3 items. The first is with respect to the LSWX license, as you've heard today from Ms. Villancourt. The bill proposes to expand the types of related degrees accepted for the bachelor's license. ASWB has provided informational comments related to national patterns and social work compact eligibility as it relates to this proposed change. And secondly, the recognition of clinical supervision hours obtained in another jurisdiction. The proposal in LD 2074 is consistent with emerging approaches nationally. ASWB can provide comparative data during the work session if that is helpful to the committee's work. And finally, although not addressed in LD 2074, ASWB would be remiss to not mention an area of regulation in which Maine is an outlier. Maine requires clinical license applicants with an MSW degree without a clinical concentration to obtain 6,400 hours of supervised practice experience. The average hourly requirement across states is 3,000 hours, although nearly half of states require a transcript review and additional clinical coursework if needed. ASWB would be happy to supply national data and regulatory analysis regarding this issue if requested. And of course, Ms. Villancourt also noted this as an outlier for Maine and perhaps something to investigate, if not with this bill, but maybe with the next effort. But in closing, I'd like to extend gratitude to Representative Mastracchio and the department for bringing this bill forward. ASWB appreciates the opportunity to work together to support Maine's social work workforce while maintaining strong, consistent public protection standards. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Any questions from committee members? I'm not seeing any. Thank you again. And Edna, is Dawn there? Thank you.
That's true. That's a good thing.
Welcome. We can see you, but you're still on mute.
Good
Hey.
afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dawn Brown, and I have the privilege of serving as the Executive Director for the National Association of Social Workers Maine chapter. I want to say thank you very much, Representative Anne Marie Mastracchio, for your time and work to look at social worker licensure in Maine. And also thank you to all the esteemed members of the Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services Committee for making it a priority to hear this bill consideration. A very special thanks to our lobbyist, Charlotte Warren, who is in person at the hearing to represent us. I came on this call on behalf of over almost 1,000 social work members we have in the state of Maine, along with thousands of other stakeholders, to learn more about the bill and its various components. One of the things to consider is I'm proud to say that as social workers, we are represented in all areas of our workforce in Maine, everywhere from the VA to schools to hospitals to private practice to nonprofit agencies, to name a few. We have the privilege to work with individuals, families, and communities throughout the state. With the increasing needs of our Maine communities, such as access to food and shelter, to quality, affordable mental health care, there's always a need for more social workers to support our communities to go from surviving to thriving. You know, with that being said, hopefully I have a little grace. I had a few words, but I did, upon hearing a little bit more about the bill, definitely would love to be in collaboration with folks at the board of social work and others to look forward to bringing about effective, sustainable solutions that center the core principles of our NASW Code of Ethics. That includes everything from limited to, but not limited to, social justice, service, and integrity. I have had the privilege also to serve as the executive director in the state of Connecticut, Florida, and Virgin Islands. So I've worked with a lot of boards and worked with a lot of different licensure considerations for our social workers throughout the country. And I would love the opportunity for us from MNASW Maine to also work in collaboration. I'm not here on support or in opposition of the bill. As I mentioned, I was here to find out more, since it was sort of the first time that, me being a new executive director in Maine, that I've heard about it. I do know our members, about all 1,000 of them plus, and others definitely have had some licensure concerns. I would love to be able to share those with folks related to this conversation, to ensure that, you know, with what was being said, it is important that we look at making sure that we're current when it comes to licensure. I definitely agree with that. I also wouldn't want any unintended consequences happening as a result of either rushing to make those changes without hearing some of those voices of those folks that have been impacted. So from the NASW Maine chapter, I really do thank you for allowing me to be here, for making social work licensure a priority, and would love to be part of those conversations moving forward to ensure that we're hearing from those people that are impacted, of course, by this. So thank you very much for your time and efforts to support social workers and the Maine individuals, families, and communities that we serve.
All right, and thank you. Questions from committee members? Not seeing any. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And is there anyone else online?
No.
All right, and anyone else in the room wishing to testify on this bill? Not seeing any requests for Colleen for the work session?
I would just say that you did have written testimony from Jamie and the other folks who are supposed to be online, so you should have copies of both of their testimonies in your folders.
All right, thank you.
Just so you know that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
So I will close the public hearing on LD 2074. And I think, Colleen, you just have some language reviews?
They'll take long.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So you, shall we say he spoke with you about those people getting the Zoom link for tomorrow? You okay with that? Yes. And then if you could just mention it to them about that bunch of.
Oh, yes.
I think that's enough. Just hand them out. They're little, there's, oh wait.
So while those are being handed out, Edna did ask me to ask committee members if you could just let her know if you're going to be at the luncheon tomorrow. She's just trying to get a head count, so.
In coil lunch.
The end coil lunch.
After the presentation.
It's.
Like we would then leave here and go over the village council. Oh, you guys are going to sleep.
And it was there enough? Do you have enough?
Is enough.
Okay, good.
No, I think the lunch. Bob, what's for lunch tomorrow?
Huh?
What's for lunch tomorrow? I need to go there.
Wraps.
Yes, all right. I'll join, but I'm not done.
I got 3 kinds. Veggie, ham and cheese, and something else. I had no idea what's cooking up downstairs, but this training.
Sounds good. Okay, I think everybody got them, but there were 3 bills that the committee voted on. think maybe more than a week ago, not at our most recent work session, although one of them was, but I wanted to just bring these back to you quickly so we can get them moving on along the way to getting reported out. I think I put them in numerical order. So the first one is LD 1970. This was Representative Osher's bill that we discussed at one of our first work sessions and were able to vote this. This was a 12-1 committee report in favor of this amendment. This is just really a cleaned up version of the language you saw when you took the vote. Nothing is substantively changed. This is the bill that was recommitted to committee at the end of last session, and after some additional work among the interested parties, proposed this amended version. So this is 1970. The second is LD 1990. This was a department bill. This is a unanimous amendment. The original bill was sought to update the requirements for psychology licensure. And the original bill sought to remove the barrier to reapplying for license for someone who has, if they failed an examination under the current law, they had to wait 6 months before reapplying for licensure. And the original bill removed that 6-month barrier for candidates applying for a license as a psychologist. The corresponding provision in the statute that provided for licensing of a separate category, psychological examiner, they didn't include that section in the bill. So this amendment just simply strikes that language at the end of the paragraph, has not within the preceding 6 months failed an examination, to be consistent for both categories of licensure in the statute. So that's LD 1990.
Okay, hold on, Representative Mastracchio.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I thought we did put an emergency on this.
The original bill has that. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
because up here
Yep.
it says add emergency.
Emergency help.
And I
Yeah.
just don't, I thought we amended it because it wasn't on there. There were at least a couple that there were no emergencies.
There's another one that you're gonna see
Oh.
in another couple of days where you did add an emergency. I believe this one had an emergency on it, so you
Oh,
need to
okay.
add
Just
one. So
wondering.
I'll confirm, but yes, I think we were already set with this one.
Okay.
And then finally, this is LD 2072. You took the vote on this bill last week. This is a department bill also from the Bureau of Financial Institutions. This was a suggested provision that was included in testimony from the Maine Credit Union League to add a section of to the bill that would authorize state chartered credit unions to make loans to its members secured by real estate in other states. Under existing statute, they are able to do that, but they are limited to mortgages on real estate located within Maine. And so this removes that restriction. You did see this language also, so, but I usually, in order to send it on for fiscal review and all that, you need to see it first, so. Thank you. That's
Okay.
those three.
That's it.
I don't have anything else.
All right. So we start at 10 tomorrow. Democrats were caucusing at 9 o'clock because we have to go to this luncheon, so we won't be able to caucus at lunch.
Not just after lunch. Will you caucus with us?